Your Honors, good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
This is a continuation of the public panel interview by the Judicial and Bar Council of candidates for the Legal Education Board Chairperson or as regular member representing the Integrated Bar of the Philippines or as regular member representing the law students sector. The panel of interviewers for today are the following: the Honorable Justice Jose Catral Mendoza, Chairperson, JBC Executive Committee, and regular member representing the retired members of the Supreme Court. The Honorable Judge Toribio E. Ilaw Jr., regular member representing the private sector. The Honorable Justice Noel Jimenez Tiham, regular member representing the Academe. And the Honorable Judge Franklin J. De Monteverde, regular member representing the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Attorney Ann? Attorney Ann,
Yes, Your Honor.
wala ba tayong prayer?
Okay, we can start
Attorney
with the
Michelle, please
prayer.
flash the prayer, Attorney Michelle.
Oh,
Yes. Naka-ready ba?
Yes.
Okay, before proceeding, let's have first the centennial prayer of the courts.
Almighty God, we stand in your holy presence as our supreme judge. We humbly beseech you to bless and inspire us so that what we think, say, and do will be in accordance with your will. Enlighten our minds, strengthen our spirit, and fill our hearts with fraternal love, wisdom, and understanding, so that we can be effective channels of truth, justice, and peace. In our proceedings today, guide us in the path of righteousness for the fulfillment of your greater glory. Amen.
Amen.
Your Honors, again, good morning.
Good morning.
morning.
The candidates for interview this morning are the following: Mr. John Michael A. Suelo and Miss Leslie Dayandi Torres. Both are vying for the position as regular member representing the law students sector. The first, I wait. May I request the candidates to please raise your right hand so that I can administer the oath? Ms. Torres, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this public panel interview by the Judicial and Bar Council?
Yes, Your Honor.
I do, Your Honor.
I do,
Good.
Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Your Honors, the first for interview will be Mr. John Michael A. Suelo. And the first to interview the candidate will be the Honorable Judge Franklin J. De Monteverde. Judge De Monteverde, sir.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Ed.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Suelo.
Good morning, Judge, Your Honor.
Okay, how do I call you?
JM
John?
po.
JM.
Opo, Your Honor.
Jordan Michael, ah? Okay, I was going over your credentials as a student, and it's quite impressive, no? Topping it all is the fact that you are or rather a member, or the chairman of the Technical Working Group on Student Welfare Legal Education Board. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, what is your work there?
Yesterday, actually, it started, Your Honor, since 2019. I was chosen as the chairman for Technical Working Group on Student Welfare and Development that takes charge po of drafting the proposed policy on the LEB Memorandum on Student Welfare and Development, Your Honor. And
Okay.
yesterday, we had our public consultation with the Philippine Association of Law Schools and the Association of Law Students of the Philippines. And we present, Your Honor, our proposed memorandum.
You are done with the technical working group?
Ongoing, Your Honor,
Yeah,
with the public
ongoing pa.
consultation. Yes, Your Honor.
When's your deadline to submit it?
Your Honor, I believe there's still another public consultation that will happen in March.
Okay. You are from Capiz or Iloilo?
My dad is from Iloilo po, and my mom is from Capiz, but currently in Capiz po,
So you are an FBI,
FBI po.
a full-blooded Ilonggo.
Yes, Your Honor. You are also Ilonggo judge, right?
Yes, I also an FBI, but grew up in Davao and Cotabato.
Right, Your Honor.
So okay, you are 26 years old right now,
Yes, Your Honor. Turning
and you are
27.
on 27, and you are on what year in the College of Law?
I'm currently fourth year, Your Honor. I'm taking subjects, fourth year subjects and third year subjects, Your Honor, because there was a year that I did not take the full load.
Okay.
So I'm expected to graduate around by 2022, Your Honor.
2022?
Yes, Your
Okay,
Honor.
good. Okay. So let's go directly to the main topic of this interview. What is your philosophy of legal education, JM?
Yes, Your Honor. As I have attended as well, Your Honor, with the Supreme Court Legal Education Summit and with the different consultations that I have attended, I always believe, Your Honor, that aside from law students being prepared to pass the bar, it is also important, Your Honor, that we are also being prepared to be practice ready. And I think the amendment to the Rule 138, the clinical legal education program, will really help us, Your Honor. So I think my philosophy is really experiential legal education, Your Honor.
Okay. So that being said, would you encourage outcome-based education?
Yes, Your Honor. And I think it's also important that we look into the holistic development of law students, that we will be prepared to appear in court sooner or later, Your Honor.
Okay. What pedagogic methodology of teaching law will you espouse? The Socratic method or the case
I
method?
think Your Honor, through the years, both has helped law students, Your Honor. Even the Socratic method, Your Honor, because it trains us how to speak in front of people, Your Honor. So I think both of an infusion of both the case and the Socratic method would be important, Your Honor. And it is also within the academic freedom of law schools on how to teach the law students and train them to become better lawyers, Your Honor.
So you would prefer a combination of both methods?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, what is meant by academic freedom, JM?
I believe, Your Honor, in Pimentel versus Legal Education Board, it was reiterated, Your Honor, the definition of academic freedom, and that includes who may teach, what may be taught, how to teach, and at the same time, who may be admitted to law schools, Your Honor.
So what are its parameters?
I believe it's going to be reasonable regulation or reasonable police power. Uh, the state should not interfere on how the law schools will conduct themselves, Your Honor, but mere supervision. I mean, not control, but supervision, Your Honor.
There are three standpoints of academic freedom.
Yes,
One
Your
from
Honor.
the standpoint of the student, one from the standpoint of the institution, and the third is from the standpoint of the members of the academy. Explain each. Let's go first to the student.
With the students, Your Honor, as we have been advocating with the student welfare and development, and at the same time, with the proposed Magna Carta of law students as well, Your Honor, it is also important the students are protected within their rights within their respective law schools, Your Honor. Like, for example, when it comes to information and orientation services, even guidance and counseling services, health services, and of course, opportunities for to assemble themselves, student organization, student council, and to have a grievance procedure, Your Honor, wherein they can express themselves and they can bring in complaints. Uh, and also your protection from example in cases of if there are sexual harassments or undue influence, Your Honor, and so and other matters, Your Honor, that affects us law students, and protection as well to law students, like for example, those with disabilities or senior citizens, law students, or working law students. So I think it's that's for the students. For the institution, Your Honor, it is
Therefore, from the standpoint of the students,
yes,
you
Your Honor.
mentioned a grievance procedure. Can you
Yes,
cite
sir.
some? Can you cite
Ah,
some
right, Your
of the
Honor.
procedures?
For the procedure, Your Honor, it is important that the law school will have their own grievance mechanism or grievance procedure, and they have the fact-finding team, Your Honor. Within that fact-finding team, the members are the law deans, the vice chairperson or the associate law deans, two members of the faculty, and one representative from the students or the student council president, Your Honor, for as long as uh, all the legal stakeholders is well represented, Your Honor. So the process would be, for example, if the case involves the faculty, so the law deans and that fact-finding team, Your Honor, would look into the basis of the complaint, Your Honor. But then
Okay.
again, yes, Your Honor.
Sige, continue.
But then again, Your Honor, for example, of course, if it's about how the professors teach their subjects, it is within the academic freedom of the professors, and I believe the law deans and the students understand it as well, Your Honor.
Okay, you also mentioned the word rally. What do you mean by it?
Rally, Your Honor,
Notice
I believe.
yes,
Yes,
go on.
Your Honor, a rally doesn't always necessarily mean like going to streets or rallying, but for at the same time, Your Honor, lobbying for a better experience, uh, advocating for the rights and welfare of law students, and even the mere sending letter, Your Honor, to the law deans, expressing the reason for said rally, Your Honor. I think that is also within the division of rally, not necessarily going to the streets.
So you are not in favor of the students going to the streets.
Your Honor, I believe it is still within. I I am not in. I respect, Your Honor, the choices of law students if they want to go to streets. But as for me, Your Honor, personally, um, it could be done in other mechanisms, Your Honor, like sending an official letter
Or a dialogue
or
between
dialogue,
the
Your
parties.
Honor. Yes, consultation. But
Okay.
of course, we respect those students who lobby, Your Honor, through the streets.
You are studying at UP? Hindi.
No, Your Honor. I am from a provincial law school,
In
Colegio de la
Capiz?
Purísima Concepción. Yes,
In
Your Honor.
Capiz?
In Capiz,
Oh.
Your Honor.
Where in Capiz? Rojas City?
Rojas City, Your Honor.
Okay. You are staying there right now.
Right now, Your Honor.
You know the father of Injap?
In job, si
The owner of the
City Mall, Your Honor.
ang ano, the owner of the manok,
RML, Your Honor. Mang
the
Inasal.
Injap is the
Yes, Mang Inasal, Your Honor.
oh yeah,
I'm
Mang
not-
Inasal.
I don't know, Your Honor, the name of his father, but I'm familiar
Sia,
of
Sia.
Injap.
Oh,
Apa.
they're from Rojas. Anyway,
Yes, Your Honor.
I have here a question for you. On January 9, 2019, the Legal Education Board passed a resolution numbered 2019-406, which states that the basic law degrees, whether LLB or JD, earned from law school recognized or supervised by the LEB and its predecessor regulatory agencies shall be considered as equivalent to doctoral degrees in other non-law academic disciplines for purposes of appointment, employment, ranking, and compensation. However, the CHED, the Commission on Higher Education, views with serious concern this resolution, where the chairman, Prospero de Vera III, said that the issuance of this resolution has been interpreted by some to mean that individuals who have completed basic law degrees have been granted doctoral degrees. He further said that the grant of authority or equivalency to non-law academic disciplines of degree programs, in this case, basic law degrees, are within the powers and authority of the Commission. Was the chairman, Prospero de Vera, correct in saying this? Your views on it?
In my point of view, Your Honor, he is not correct. It is within the Legal Education Board to offer law degrees and how it is to be called. As ruled in Pimentel versus Leb, legal education is within the jurisdiction of the Legal Education Board, holding RA 7662, Your Honor. With the migration of the law degree to Juris Doctor, Your Honor, I think it is just okay, Your Honor, because we are giving premium as well to the legal profession and to the legal education. Uh, Before going to law school, there's a requirement to finish 4 years bachelor's degree. And I believe it's already a professional degree, Your Honor. And it is just and proper that if in basis of for compensation or for promotion, that it will be considered as as compared to other academic disciplines. But we also understand, Your Honor, that there's still masters of law, doctors of law that is being offered. Your
Yes,
Honor.
that's my point. What about those master degrees and doctorate degrees in law?
I believe, Your Honor,
Will it not be a disadvantage by merely the calling of the graduate of the basic law as a doctor of laws?
I think within the legal community, Your Honor, we understand that Juris Doctor degree is different from the Doctors of Law and even Masteral degree. And of course, being able to take Masters of Law and Doctors of Law, there's a requirement that somehow there's a prior experience in the practice of law. So there's a difference, Your Honor, I believe.
A UST senior high school student was recently penalized with non-readmission next academic year to the university after admitting openly through Facebook post that he was a member of a leftist youth organization not recognized by the university. The student mentioned that he was a member of the Anak Bayan in a Facebook post in November where he advocated for academic ease as typhoons and uses battered the country. What is your opinion on this?
I believe, Your Honor, our constitutional respected regardless of our beliefs. Um, for example, if that potential student or applicant, Your Honor, is lefty, belongs to the left group, um, he or she has the right to be educated or to go to school, Your Honor, and it is within the freedom of law school who they are going to admit, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
But it should not be that he or she will not be admitted because of being part of this group.
Okay. So was the decision of the university considered part of its academic freedom as a private academic institution, which leads me first to the second standpoint, from the standpoint of the educational institution. Before you answer the first question that I posed, ito muna yung standpoint ana isang educational institution. What do you mean by it?
For academic freedom of the institutions, Your Honor, educational institutions, I think part of it is looking into who they are going to admit within their educational institution, um, and looking into the qualifications set forth by the example, the board of trustees of that university, of that educational institution, that uh, it would not conflict within their um, the the rules set forth by the university, Your Honor. But again, they cannot simply ignore, Your Honor, a student because uh, of being part of the leftist group, unless that person has shown through overt that he or she has really committed uh, an act that would against our rules and regulation or the laws of the government.
Under circumstance and this situation, which would prevail? The standpoint from that of the student or from that of the educational institution? Connection
Actually,
with that I mentioned to you.
uh,
The
I believe, Your
non-readmission.
Honor, within academe, it's the point of the educational institutions because it is with them who to admit in I mean to admit in the school. But at the time, considering the students or the applicants,
So,
but
so it was
it should be
correct so it was correct and penal the student for admitting that he was a member of the Anak Bayan by not being readmitted to the next academic year. So the institution was correct.
Your Honor. Sorry.
You didn't get it? So,
Medyo choppy lang po. Sorry.
Chappy ka rin eh. Chappy ka man. Oo.
Sorry po.
Okay, hindi mo na chappy ako sa imo.
Yes, Your Honor. Sorry.
Ha?
Your Honors, the internet connection is unstable. Can you hear us
Okay.
now? Are we coming clear?
Ako, I hear you.
Okay, Mr.
Po.
Suelo, can you hear me?
Yes po.
Is it?
Thank
It's
you
clear.
po.
It's coming clear. Okay po.
Thank you po.
JM,
Yes, Your Honor.
clear na? Clear na ako
Opo, okay na po.
Okay. Sige. So, was the university correct in penalizing the student by not readmitting him to the next academic school year for his admission on a FB post that he was a member of the Akbayan?
Mm. I believe, Your Honor, that the university is correct in that case. But of course, that student who admitted that he or she is part of Anak Bayan can always bring it up, Your Honor, and so that he or she will be considered, Your Honor.
Anyway, let's go to the third standpoint. From the standpoint of the members of the ACIN. This will be my last question, JM.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, JM.
Your Honor.
Oh. You hear me? Do you hear JM?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's go to the third point.
Yes, Your Honor.
From the point of view of the members of the academy, what do you mean by it?
When it comes to the members of the academy, Your Honor, I think that's where the element of how to teach and example the qualifications of the professors, Your Honor. They have the freedom on how they are going to teach the student. Whether, for example, in law school, it's Socratic method or other teaching methods that they can employ. It's up to the professor, Your Honor. And same time, I believe that their qualifications, whether it is that they should have a master's degree or doctorate degree to be able to teach, it is within the discretion of the law deans and of course the faculty, Your Honor.
Anyway, JM, kindly read Frank Lovejoy, Encyclopedia of Social Science, page 384 on this. Huh?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, that's my last question. Good luck.
Salamat, Your Honor. Salamat yun.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, Judge de Monteverde.
Okay, thank you, Attorney.
To interview Mr. Suelo next is Honorable JBC Regular Member Justice Noel Jimenez Tiham. Your Honor, Justice Tiham, please.
Thank you, Attorney Ann.
Welcome, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Suelo.
Good morning, Justice.
Can you explain in your own words your understanding the role of the legal education, the participation of the legal education board from admission of students up to graduation?
Yes, Your Honor. The Legal Education Board is provided for under Republic Act number 7662, Your Honor. It is within their functions, Your Honor, and objectives to prepare law students for advocacy, training them for leadership, at the same time impressing on them, Your Honor, the nobility, the dignity, and the importance, Your Honor, of the legal profession in the administration of justice, Your Honor. That is why, Your Honor, it is not only the legal education board should not only prepare law students to pass the bar, but at the same time to be practice ready.
Now, does the Legal Education Board have any participation in the revision of the curriculum in law schools?
Your Honor, the Legal Education Board has set a minimum standard or requirement, Your Honor. For example, the prerequisites, law subjects that the law school should offer to law students. For example, before one can go and take criminal law two, they should take criminal law one first. So I think it is part of what the LEB has issued in their memorandum order. And at the same time, Your Honor, they could also propose or somehow encourage law schools to take subjects, Your Honor.
Now, the law schools are also under the CHED, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. The
But
CHED,
how do you differentiate? What is the dividing line between the CHED and the Legal Education Board with respect to law schools?
I believe, Your Honor, CHED will also sit as part of the Legal Education Board. So our representative from CHED will also be part of the board. But I believe, Your Honor, when it comes to legal education, it is really the Legal Education Board who has a say on it since it was created with as a separate agency. But at the same time, Your Honor, CHED is not left out because CHED will also sit as part of the Legal Education Board.
If you are appointed to the Legal Education Board to represent the aspirations of the student sector, and you are outvoted in the Legal Education Board, what will you do and how would you explain it to the student sector?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe when I sit as the national president of the Association of Law Students of the Philippines, there would really be instances, Your Honor, that there are disagreements. But I have also learned because of that experience, Your Honor, that I was able to establish linkages with different stakeholders, like Philippine Association of Law Schools, within Marisol Aninias, Integrated Bar of the Philippines, and even the Legal Education Board, Your Honor, with the current sitting Commissioner Catherine Pedrosa and the chair Zenaida Elepaño, Your Honor. So I would explain, Your Honor, to the law students the reason why I was outvoted. Again, it's all about striking a balance, Your Honor, and at the same time, respecting my fellow commissioners, Your Honor, because it has to be a collegial decision, and I believe it has gone through consultation naman, Your Honor, and I will respect it.
Do you think a commissioner in the Legal Education Board representing the student sector has a better understanding of student concerns than the other commissioners?
I believe, Your Honor, it doesn't necessarily mean that the student representative has a better understanding than other commissioners because the
You
other
should have,
commissioners
have
have,
you should have a better understanding.
yes,
You
Your
should
Honor.
have a better
Yes,
understanding.
Your Honor.
My point is,
Yes, Your Honor.
there is a conflict between you're formulating policies in the Legal Education Board. In case of a conflict between the interest of students, the interest of academic institutions, the interest of law professors, and the interest of legal practitioners. So, how would you, in your opinion, is there an interest which is a little bit more paramount than the rest?
I believe, Your Honor. Just for example,
You're talking about legal education, correct? And we are talking of legal education of students.
yes, Your Honor.
That there should be more premium in uplifting the interest of students.
I believe so, Your Honor, because the direct beneficiaries of legal education are students. But also, we respect, Your Honor, the other legal stakeholders in the legal community. Because at the same time, Your Honor, they have also been once a student like us, and they know how they can help us. But at the same time, for example, yesterday in our public consultation with the Student Welfare and Development, there are law deans who raise the issue on some of the policies that it may be too restrictive, it may be too encroaching on their academic freedom. So, as for as Your Honor, as for as long as we can strike a balance and there's going to be a dialogue and mutual understanding, Your Honor, I believe disagreements are normal, Your Honor. But at the same time, I think when we advocate for students' rights and welfare, and as recipients of legal education, for as long as we are understand, and it has to go through consultation, Your Honor, for mutual understanding.
Do you consider foreign educational institutions as prospective stakeholders in improving legal education in the Philippines?
Yes, Your Honor. Um,
And
I believe
would it be better? Would it be better to have tie-ups, coordination? Would it be better to have to import the best practices in foreign law schools? In
yes,
your
Your Honor. I believe so, Your Honor, because I believe the study of law is evolving, and at the same time, Your Honor, for example, with the clinical legal education program, before it was crafted, Your Honor, the members, I believe some of the members of the Supreme Court went to other countries as well to experience how CLEP is being offered to in foreign law schools. And I think it's high time, Your Honor, that we also welcome the practices of foreign institutions. And I think for as long as we can, it would be for the betterment of the law students, Your Honor, and of legal education. We welcome it, Your Honor.
from your perspective, is legal education universal?
In my perspective, Your Honor, universal in the sense that uh, it is preparing potential lawyers who wants to help the marginalized and underprivileged sectors of the community, the nobility that comes with it in serving the poor and the oppressed, Your Honor, and being able to provide access to justice. uh, I think it should be universal, uh, and for everyone, Your Honor.
Is legal education, the point I'm driving at is legal education in the Philippines the same as legal education in the United States or in European, Asian countries and elsewhere? Is there
The
a
legal
common denominator aside from the fact that everybody becomes lawyers, but is there really a universal element in legal education?
I believe, Your Honor, I think the common denominator is that the in law schools across the world, Your Honor, is to prepare law students for the practice of law and to be able to pass the bar exam. But as I have learned, Your Honor, through my experience with Asian Law Students Organization, I have learned from other universities in Asia that there are laws, for example, senior high school, they can already go to law school, or there are instances as well, Your Honor, that um, they have to finish first a 4-year degree course. Actually, it varies, Your Honor. But I think the common denominator is being able to prepare as law students for the practice of law, Your Honor.
How come there is legal education for prospective lawyers in the Philippines, but there is no legal education for prospective judges in the Philippines? I know that there is the Philippine Judicial Academy, but that is not per se legal education, but judicial training and orientation. So what I'm talking is, if Philippine laws prescribe a 4-year course for prospective lawyers, should not laws be crafted, or the Supreme Court comes out with rules that will require prospective judges to undergo at least 2-year uh, course training in preparation to becoming judges?
I believe, Your Honor, with our current situation, with the mandatory continuing legal education, and of course with the Philippine
Is mandatory continuing legal education
continuing,
in preparation for judgeship, or to improve the quality of lawyers? Are
to
you
improve the
preparing?
quality of
Are you
lawyers, Your
preparing
Honor. I'm
participants
sorry.
for judgeship in MPLE? In your opinion, is that enough?
Uh, I I think, Your Honor, if ever, I think we should also entertain that also, Your Honor, and welcome the possibility of having uh, a course or for a legal education for judgeship, Your Honor.
Yeah. In other words,
Yes, Your Honor.
the Philippine Judicial Academy can offer a 2-year course, meaning to say 24-month course
Hmm.
in preparation for judgeship. Well, the PhilJA conducts a 2-week pre-judicature, but that is not enough to prepare somebody for judgeship, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
In your opinion, if you become a lawyer and you practice for 5 years or 10 years, in your opinion, would that be sufficient to qualify you for a judgeship position?
I believe, Your Honor, the demands of judgeship is different from that of being a lawyer. Just as we advocate, Your Honor, for law students to be practice ready, I believe it's also right and proper to also advocate for some lawyers who want to be judges later on, to be judge ready as well, Your Honor.
Is judicial education different from legal education? Do you think there's a difference?
Because, Your Honor, our legal education in the country, as defined within RA 7662, only covers those who are law students before they were admitted to the bar. But if ever, Your Honor, I believe it can be amended, or even the Supreme Court, Your Honor, the Philippine Judicial Academy can offer the course, Your Honor, for judgeship.
Now let's talk about academic freedom. We asked this question of all the applicants. In your opinion, from your perspective, is academic freedom circumscribed? Can it only be exercised within the confines of the school premises?
Your Honor, academic freedom is not only within the campus, but for as long as you are part of that academic institution, wherever you are, wherever you go, Your Honor, that academic freedom is still within you, Your Honor. For example, with how we conduct classes right now, as it is done online. So it's part of the academic freedom, Your Honor.
I'm talking of academic freedom of students.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that confined within the school? Can can students exercise academic freedom outside of the school premises?
I believe, Your Honor, academic freedom, if it means freedom of expression, uh, I
Tell
think
me
they can exercise it.
your understanding of academic freedom.
In my understanding, Your Honor, I
Academic
believe
freedom of students. I'm talking of
freedom of
students.
students. Um, for as long as, Your Honor, we are still students of that academic institutions, uh,
So
we still
if you are an out of school youth, you used to be a student of the University of the Philippines, and then you were not able to enroll the next semester out of school youth. Can you still exercise academic freedom?
uh, I believe, Your Honor, it would already fall within the constitutional freedom to speech and freedom of
In other
expression.
words, your answer is there is no academic freedom, but freedom of expression, freedom of speech.
Yes.
All right. Now, students, during semestral break, walang pasok. Can they exercise academic freedom?
Yes, Your Honor. They can still exercise because they are still part of that academic institution.
Okay. Students of the University of Santo Tomas, can they conduct street protest inside the school premises of the University of the Philippines and claim that they're exercising academic freedom in another school?
I believe, Your Honor, if it is, for example, with the permission
Without
of
permission, they're saying we are exercising. When you exercise academic freedom, do you require a permission to exercise? Academic
no,
freedom
Your Honor.
students. I'm talking of students.
Okay. Uh, th- they can exercise it, Your Honor.
In another school, of which they are not students, but they're students of a separate school. Can they do that? In your opinion, there are no right and wrong answers here.
In my opinion, Your Honor, of course, subject, although it is within the academic freedom, Your Honor, if you come from other schools, Your Honor, and of course, for example, UST and UP, you cannot, uh, like for example, just go
Your
there,
answer
Your
is
Honor.
no. Your answer is no. It should be within your school.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, when the UPDND Accord was abrogated unilaterally by Secretary Lorenzana, students, faculty, and alumni of UP conducted a protest action inside UP. And that was the exercise of academic freedom, correct? And freedom
Ye-
of expression.
Yes,
Now,
Your Honor.
a group of people representing the party list, youth party list, conducted a similar protest action inside the UP premises, espousing the contrary view, and they were barred by the UP authorities. Was that not a violation of academic freedom or the freedom of expression? I mean, you're aware of that. It was in the news, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Because that
So,
youth
inalaw nila
organ,
yung mga taga-UP and friends and sympathizers to conduct a protest inside. So that's academic freedom and freedom of expression. Pero yung outsider, party youth, consisting of some students also, but not necessarily of UP, they wanted to go inside and conduct a protest espousing a different view, but they were barred. Now, barring their entry, was that a violation of their academic freedom or freedom of expression? In your opinion, there are no right and wrong answers. Anyway,
in my op-
hindi ka naman taga-UP eh.
in my opinion, Your Honor, since it's a youth party list party group, and
No, we're not
they
talking
are
about
on.
academic freedom. I said, is that a violation of freedom of expression, freedom of speech?
I believe, Your Honor, it is not a violation of the freedom of expression or the academic freedom because, for one, Duterte Youth is not authorized with, I mean,
Which
that's,
begs the question, does academic freedom of the University of the Philippines include prohibiting, barring the entry of protests of a different view or of the opposite view? Is that academic freedom of the University of the Philippines?
yes, Your Honor, it's part of the academic freedom.
In your school, kung mayroong magpo-protest na contrary sa cause ninyo, you
Opo.
can bar them because that is an exercise of academic freedom. That's what you're
Yes,
saying.
yes, Your Honor.
All right. That is my last question. Oh, I'm sorry. Just one last question. As a member of the lab, it is important for law students to spend time inside the classroom so that they will learn. Are you in favor of limiting protest actions during school break only or during weekends when there are no classes? That's my last question.
I believe, Your Honor, it is within the academic of freedom of students how they want to make use of their time. But of course, their grades will suffer, their academic standing will suffer. But we should not restrict them if they want to exercise or protest action, even during academic breaks, Your Honor.
That's a very safe answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Suelo.
Thank you po, Justice.
Thank you, Your Honor, Justice Tiham. We now turn over the conduct of the interview to Honorable JBC regular member, Judge Toribio E. Ilaw Jr.
Yes, thank you, Attorney Yan. Wow.
Your
Hi,
Honor.
Yes,
Judge.
good morning. Good
Hey
morning.
po.
How do I call you? What's your nickname, John? What's your
JM po.
nickname? It's too long.
JM.
John Michael. JM,
JM,
yeah.
Your Honor. Opo.
I was about to ask that JM because John Paul, JP, John Michael. Okay. Alright, okay. Smile. Alright, after the desultory skimming of your application letter, which seems to be strongly worded, I don't want to say arrogant, medyo strongly worded na lang. But however, and that you have implied more than once that you are talented in writing. However, your submissions contain grammatical error. This with this paragraph, attached is the updated personal data sheet, JBC form, and other requirements. Is this correct? Attached is, but referring to others, not only one.
Okay.
Or should it be, you have
Attached
your application
are.
letter with you? You have your application attached are.
Attached are, Your Honor, supposedly. I'm sorry.
Supposedly. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So how will you remedy this and push yourself to be better? Is it also your habit not appropriating your documents or communications? But overall, it just seems to be impressive your application letter. So the question, do you think humility is important as a law student and as a public servant?
Yes, Your Honor. Humility is very much important. We always come to this point, Your Honor, that we do not really know everything, and learning is a lifelong process, Your Honor. I have faced in my life, Your Honor, that there have been criticisms, and I take it constructively, Your Honor. And I'm willing to correct it and to learn from it, Your Honor. And I think for as long as I acknowledge, Your Honor, my mistakes and to improve and to develop myself, Your Honor, I think I can do that, Your Honor, if ever given the opportunity.
Areta, tell me more about yourself. Tell me something which is not found in your application letter.
Yes, Your Honor. I am an only child. I came from a broken family, Your Honor. My mother is a social worker. She graduated master's degree in UP Diliman with social work, and my dad is an overseas Filipino worker, Your Honor. So since I was a child, Your Honor, I would always go with my mom in her community works or in her office. So at a young age, Your Honor, I was exposed to the lives of the marginalized and underprivileged sectors of the community. For example, Your Honor, I remember when I was a child, my playmates were street children, and I was exposed at a young age, Your Honor. And I have kept it within myself, and it has become my inspiration, Your Honor. At the same time, my greatest why to be able to do the same way my mom did in serving the community, Your Honor.
All right. Your life seems to be diverse. You were born in Novaliches, Quezon City, yet your father is from Bacolod City, Negros. Your mother is from Roas City. What dialect or vernaculars do you speak? Aside from Tagalog.
I can speak Ilonggo, Your Honor. Uh, Ilonggo, Hiligaynon. Um, there was a time, Your Honor, that I was really born in Novaliches because my mom, Your Honor, worked in NCR that time. So I, since I was born until my grade 5, Your Honor, I was in Manila, Your Honor, in Cavite. And when my aunt died, we went back to Rojas City. And so I finished my high school in Capiz National High School and went to Iloilo, Your Honor, for my undergrad degree course in political science.
And you declared in your PDS that your residence is in Barangay Arguelles, Haro, Iloilo City.
Haro, Iloilo City, Your Honor.
Right, I remember. Reminds me of Haro. What is Haro famous for?
Bizcocho, Your Honor.
Sarap. Biscocho.
Yes po. And Batsoy sa La Paz.
Batchoy sa Lapas. About the religious one, I remember the late Cardinal Santos, was based in Haro, Rufino Santos.
I'm not aware of, Your Honor. Sorry, Your Honor.
You're not even born about that time, 60s, 50s, 60s. Right. So in your application letter, you stated that in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, I don't know whether this question has already been asked, you have led your fellow law students towards new norm of studying law.
Yes, Your Honor.
How were you able to do this? In brief,
Yes, Your Honor. Because as we adjust to the new normal of legal education, we acknowledge, Your Honor, that there are different law students across the country who are saying that there should be academic freeze, academic ease, or even just academic break, Your Honor. We had our consultation, Your Honor. I was called for by the law student sector representative, Commissioner Catherine Pedrosa, and asked me directly what should we do for the students, what is the sentiment of the students when it comes to adjustment to the new normal of legal education. And so the output of that consultation, Your Honor, was made into a policy, Your Honor, in the adjustment to the normal of legal education. At the same time, Your Honor, we had collaborated. We have the first national mental health and wellness training for law students. I wrote the proposal, and Commissioner Catherine Pedrosa and I worked hand in hand, Your Honor, for that. Because we acknowledge, Your Honor, that because of the pandemic, law students are also affected mentally, Your Honor. We have we cope up differently from each other, Your Honor. So it's only right that we also advocate for it, Your Honor. At the same time, we also had the online learning survival guide for law students, Your Honor, wherein we invited law students, the Law Student Council presidents, to attend that online survival guide, wherein they were trained on how to use the application, the learning management system, so that they can properly use it once they attend their online classes, Your Honor. And after that, Your Honor, I also initiated an online student consultation with Legal Education Board and Philippine Association of Law Schools. It's an opportunity, Your Honor, to give a platform to law students wherein their questions will be addressed, wherein they will be heard, Your Honor, and the concerned stakeholders are there to answer, Your Honor. So there have been a lot of projects and activities to help them, Your Honor, in our adjustment to new normal of legal education, and that's it, Your Honor.
All right. You also stated in your application letter that you have been proactive in advocating addressing the grievances of law students. Could you specify the normal complaints of law students?
Uh, there are Yes, Your Honor. If I remember it right, there's an instance with an NCR law school, and and they come to us because they are elected as student council officers, Your Honor. But of course, with the trust and confidence of their fellow law students because they were elected. But later on, Your Honor, their existence were not acknowledged by the law dean. So the law dean acknowledges a different set of officers for which they are not elected but chosen by the law deans. So there's a conflict that happened because there's this elected officers and there's this appointed officers by the law deans. So what we can do with that, Your Honor, is to, of course, I told them to exhaust administrative remedies, to, of course, go through the policy of the educational institution first, and then before they can elevate it to legal education board. So we have a dialogue, Your Honor, on how to settle it as well, Your Honor. So that's one of the instances, Your Honor.
How about cyber demeanor, like bullying?
Bullying, Your Honor. There are instances, Your Honor, on cyberbullying, but we, of course, like it is that what we can only do, Your Honor, is to refer them to the proper authority. For example, the NBI, Your Honor, or to bring it up to the university institutions, Your Honor. Because even though we are from the Association of Law Students of the Philippines, we can only address problems that is within our duties and responsibilities, Your Honor. But for cyberbullying, Your Honor, we refer them, and because of the established linkages, Your Honor, that we had.
And you likewise stated that as the national president, you visited schools in NCR, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and have had in-depth understanding of regional concerns.
Yes, Your
What
Honor.
concerns were you able to unearth and deeply understand?
Yes, Your Honor. Since 2017, I started coming from a provincial law school. I had my humble beginning, Your Honor, and I rose through the ranks. So I was elected first as secretary for Visayas of ALSP, and then a year after, I was elected as vice governor for Visayas, and then before I was elected as national president of ALSP, and right now, Your Honor, as one of the alumni trustees of ALSP. Um, Through those, I think in the past 3 years, Your Honor, we had several consultations already. And like for example, the first Legal Education Board National Congress for Law Students, the Supreme Court Legal Education Regional Consultations, Your Honor, and the different programs and projects that we had in ALSP. What is common, Your Honor, would always be academic workload, their mental health, their access to library facilities, access to even guidance services, Your Honor, and student handbook. Some law schools in the country, Your Honor, doesn't have their student handbook. Some doesn't have even student councils, Your Honor. There are 127 law schools in the country, but as of the moment, Your Honor, there are only around 60 members in good standing of ALSP, and there's a percentage, Your Honor, that law schools do not have their own student council. So most of the time, Your Honor, they are not well represented. And I think those are some of the common issues, Your Honor.
By the way, why did you move from one law school to another?
Yes, Your Honor. Um, as I entered law school, Your Honor, back in 2016, and my batchmates, Your Honor, graduated last year, 2020. It's not only the reason because my 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 classmates already graduated, and I'm still in law school, Your Honor. I think we all go through that phase, Your Honor, that we have to find ourselves. We question if the study of law is still worth it. We go back to our greatest why, and for as long as uh, we're still fighting and not giving up, Your Honor. I also enrolled here with Incapis, Your Honor, because as per my mom's ano rin po, um, suggestion na rin po. But I have nothing against my former university, Your Honor. We are really very good, in a good relationship, Your Honor. There was an instance also, Your Honor, because of course, being elected as national president, there are instances wherein there are events and activities held in NCR. So I once considered, Your Honor, in moving to an NCR law school. Actually, there was an I I I I already processed my papers, Your Honor, but then pandemic happened, so I have to go back here at home. But if ever, Your Honor, I am very open to that possibility, Your Honor.
So you started the law course at Central Philippine University
Yes,
in
Your Honor.
2016 and
Yes, Your Honor.
up to 2020. So your
Yes, Your Honor.
very good students then graduated. Central Philippine University is located at
Haro,
where
Iloilo.
in Haro, Iloilo.
Yes, Your
About
Honor.
this Colegio de la
Purisima.
Purísima Concepción.
It is located, Your Honor, here in Rojas City, Capiz, in my mom's hometown. But I would always travel, Your Honor.
How far is Iloilo to Capiz?
2 hours, Your Honor. 3 hours if it's bus, 2 hours if van, Your Honor, or yeah, van.
Nga pala, it belongs to the Panay Island nga pala ng ano. Do you think you are at that advantage or disadvantage considering that you are not from the alleged best law schools?
I believe, Your Honor, I am not. I consider it as an advantage, Your Honor. I'm not. Uh, in the 127 law schools in the country, Your Honor, I believe the prestigious law schools and even in NCR law schools, there's around 30 plus law schools. But the rest are provincial law schools. And who can better relate and who can better represent the provincial law schools, but also someone who come from a provincial law school, Your Honor. And I think it was not an issue, Your Honor, because I have successfully completed my term as national president, and after that, Your Honor, I've been elected and chosen again as an alumni trustee of ALSP, serving as advisor and consultant to the newly elected officers of ALSP, Your Honor. So, uh, I have a working relationship, Your Honor, with the NCR Student Councils, Your Honor. One of my directors, Your Honor, is the president of UP Law. One of my members in the TWG, Your Honor, is the president of the Ateneo Law School. So, and of course, the governor of NCR, Your Honor. I have a working relationship with them, and I believe, Your Honor, it is never a disadvantage, Your Honor. And if ever time will come, Your Honor, that it is a must or it's already we will go back to the face to face, Your Honor. Um, I welcome the possibility of moving to NCR, Your Honor. But I believe there are also commissioners who come from the provinces, Your Honor. So it's not a disadvantage, Your Honor.
All right. In clinical legal education, what is a standalone course offering?
Your Honor.
In, in clinical legal education, what is a standalone course offering?
I I I believe, Your Honor, since the clinical education program, currently there's a training being conducted by the Supreme Court Oversight Committee and the Legal Education Board, Your Honor. There are still law schools who doesn't have CLEP yet, but since it is already a requirement for the 2023 bar exams, it is required, Your Honor, that it will be offered already and prepare students who will be taking the 2023 bar exams and have it offered, Your Honor. So there's a certification 1 and certification 2. So even the first year law students who have successfully completed their first semester and second semester can already apply for the certification 1, wherein they can have client interview, and while there's also certification 2, where they can already prepare pleadings. But this is for the third year and fourth year law students, Your Honor.
All right. Please look into section 5, Legal
Yes, sir.
Education Board Memorandum Order number 23, series of 2020. All right. What's this?
JM.
JM?
Yes, Your Honor.
What are the limitations of the student's exercise at his her constitutional right of free speech within the school?
The limitation, Your Honor, is that it should not interfere. For example, if there's classes going on, and although the academic institution respect the academic freedom on a standpoint of students, they are still bound to regulation. It is not absolute, Your Honor. Uh, it should not be tantamount, Your Honor, as to uh, would go against the policies imposed by the university, Your Honor. It should be subject to reasonable regulation
All right,
of the
my
university.
time.
Yes, sir.
All right, research on Magana versus Danes 2. GR number 89317, May 20, 1990. Anyway, my time is up, but can I request for another question? Last question, Chairman. All right, this is my last one. JM.
Yes, Your Honor.
A king and one of his knights order gin and tonic water from the bar. Unknown to them, there was a poison in their drink. The king gulps his drink down in one go, straight, has a bit of tummy ache and nothing more. The knight sips his drink slowly but dies after a few hours later. Why didn't the king die?
Your Honor. Um,
Oh, sirit na.
uh, yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time and such and being a sport talaga. And good luck,
Thank you, Your
Jay.
Honor. Salamat po, Your Honor.
Salamat din. All right.
Thank you, Your
Yes,
Honor.
Attorney Yan, I'm done.
The last to interview Mr. Swallow is our Executive Committee Chairperson, Honorable Justice Jose Catral Mendoza. Your Honor, Justice Mendoza.
Thank you very much, Anne.
You're welcome.
On my screen, nakalagay start my video, but I already started it.
We can see you po, Your Honor.
You can see me now. Sige, sige. Paano to alisin sa screen? Start my video siguro.
Wait lang, escape lang po.
Ayan, ayan. Okay, thank you. Oh, good morning, Mr. Suelo.
Good morning, Justice.
Morning. Oh, I've heard the questions of my colleagues and I'm adopting them. And I also read your answers to the questions asked of you during the essay. I would just like to ask you that you're being the student representative. What do you think can you contribute to the LEBP?
Aside from representing the law students, Your Honor,
Yeah.
I believe it is high time that there would be data-based and evidence-based policies in legal education. Because what's happening, Your Honor, is that most of the time, LEB would issue a memorandum without properly consulting the legal stakeholders of the legal community, Your Honor. And just like what happened with PhilSat, Your Honor, that it has created, of course, um, it created the conflict because, Your Honor, there's no scientific study about it. Why should PhilSat be conducted? And there's no data available, Your Honor, as it was even stated by then Chairman, Your Honor, of Legal Education Board during the oral arguments. So, parang ang nangyayari po kasi, Your Honor, sabi ni ganito, sabi ni ganyan. So, I think it's high time that there would really be evidence-driven policies on legal education. And at the same time, Your Honor, advocate for really consultation with the stakeholders. Although we are well represented in the Legal Education Board, it before passing a policy, it's also important, Your Honor, that for example, the Philippine Association of Law Schools will be consulted if a policy would encroach to their academic freedom, and even the students, if this is what the student wants or what would be the opinion of the students, Your Honor. And moreover, Your Honor, I think we should also, for me, Your Honor, being a mental health advocate through the years and with being able to partner with LEB, with the first National Mental Health and Wellness Training for law students, I would continue advocating for the mental health of law students because with my experience, Your Honor, with Asian Law Students Association, I realized, Your Honor, that other law schools and even the Australian law schools, Your Honor, and the European law schools, uh, during one of our events, Your Honor, they have mental health toolkits. They have a policy on the mental health of of law students, Your Honor, and also with what I'm currently working on, Your Honor, the student welfare and development policy that would be a minimum standard, Your Honor, to the different law schools. I think that would be my contribution, Your Honor. And since it is evolving, Your Honor, I would always be open to dialogues to the law students to hear them out, to all of their current needs, Your Honor, if ever given the opportunity to sit in the Legal Education Board, Your Honor.
What do you mean by evidence-based?
Evidence-based, Your Honor, it should be backed up by study, or the least, Your Honor, there was a survey that it is really needed by the law schools, or even the law students, Your Honor. I have learned this as well, Your Honor, during one of our talks with the Center for Legal Education Advancement and Reform, Your Honor, that that's what is lacking, Your Honor, currently. And like I said, I think that was raised in an oral argument for Pimentel versus Leb, Your Honor, wherein then chairman was not able to present a up or a study back. So with all other parties, Your Honor, I think there
Anyway,
would
you mentioned that already. You mentioned about mental health. How about mental health professors?
yes, Your
The so-called professors. You have in present school.
Your Honor.
Yes, you talk mental health of professors. Of students. How about the mental health of professors? Did the lab
Yes,
do
Your Honor.
anything about that?
I have actually,
Transgressing academic freedom?
I think I'm already part of the Legal Education Board. I would now be a with my colleagues as well, Your Honor. I was talking on a perspective as as a law student, but I think it's high time that we also advocate for the mental health of the professor, the law deans, even the secretary in law school and the staff, Your Honor. I think everyone in the legal community, lawyers, Your Honor, with
Because
integrated bar
that will be in
activities.
consultation with them, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You encountered terror professors
I did, Your Honor. I have my share of experience.
in where in CPU or de la Purisima Constitution?
Um, I think that was criminal law subject.
Oh, okay. So, our experience uh, with the members of the JBC, when we had terrors after the bar, they were the ones we take for being terror. Anyway, you want the mental health of professors. Yeah. What is really the problem? Not being a terror, not being strict in a I think they're mentally healthy. But what are you targeting?
Yes, Your Honor. In the survey that we have conducted, Your Honor, in the case of law students, it's not only the workload that affects the mental health of law students. It's actually a biopsychological factors. So includes their family circumstances, their current
You're
jobs.
referring to the students. I was asking you about the mental health professors. You're talking
Of,
about mental health of students. Uh, sige, you continue regarding the mental health of students because you
uh,
mentioned a lot earlier. I heard you.
I, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Okay, so with the mental health of professors, Your Honor, I believe, Your Honor, that we should also advocate for their mental health because primarily we understand that aside from law school, they are also practicing lawyers. Some of them are also practicing lawyers, and the legal profession in itself, it is expected, Your Honor, to have stress. It would lead to burnout and worse comes to worse, depression, Your Honor. So
What is
I
the
think
effect? What is the effect of those? You have experienced that
um, I believe, Your Honor, I have my own share of experience of
Mm.
stress from time to time.
of the
But not
professors? Of the professors, is mental stress of the professors?
caused by the professors, Your Honor.
Yes. No, no, no. Mental stress of the professors.
Uh,
Or you're referring to your mental stress which you have experienced?
yes, Your Honor.
No,
I
we are
thought
referring to the mental health of professors.
yes, Your Honor.
Uh,
I
what is usually wrong with the professors about their mental health? You spoke of evidence-based positions. Now,
yes,
do you
sir.
have any evidence regarding their mental health generally?
Generally, Your Honor,
Yeah.
that is also the same reason why I'm advocating for evidence-based, Your Honor. Because right now, to be honest, Your Honor, there is still no research on the mental health of the state of
Professors.
mental health of law professors, Your Honor. And if ever, Your Honor, that is something that we can work on, Your Honor.
Aside from what is your observation of professors? Uh, well, you may that may be limited because you have been only to two law schools. Uh, anyway, what can you recommend as to their mental health without transgressing the academic freedom of the school
Yes,
to
Your
choose
Honor.
who to teach?
Uh, Yes, Your Honor. I think it is within the academic freedom of law schools on how they want to teach the law
Yes.
students.
Oh.
And we cannot, as law students, we cannot really interfere on the mental health of the law professors, but the educational institution can
But
provide
but
mechanisms.
as a member of the LEB, assuming that you be appointed, what can you do? Not as a student, but as student representative in the LEB.
As commissioner, Your Honor, as student sector representative,
Yes.
I would lobby for a policy on the state of mental health of the professors, Your Honor. First, to conduct a study about it and to because we need a data. We need to know first the state of mental health of the law professors before we can create a policy. And then at the same time, once we draft the policy, Your Honor, it should be within consultation of the Association of Law Professors.
Do you think you
With
can make it mandatory?
I think it has already been ruled out, Your Honor, that the Legal Education Board can only provide for minimum standards, minimum
Yes. What is the
requirement.
minimum standards or requirement with respect to mental health? What is the
For
minimum?
minimum requirement, Your Honor, for as long as there is access to mental health professionals or to guidance, counseling, and services, Your Honor, or health services. That's the minimum, I think, Your Honor, requirement. That if in case the law professors would need it, there's an available access to within their educational institution, Your Honor.
in CPU or your present school, do you evaluate your professors
Yes, Your Honor. There's an
after every
evaluation.
semester?
Yes,
After
Your
every
Honor.
semester, you evaluate.
Yes, Your Honor.
In UP, they do that too. Oh. Have you studied labor law?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you uh, dismiss a professor on the basis of the evaluation of the students? Poor evaluation.
No, Your Honor.
You
I
cannot?
believe
You cannot?
on the basis of the student's evaluation,
Yes.
no, Your Honor.
You cannot?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you not argue that it is a lawful cause, inefficiency?
They are still afforded due process, Your
Due
Honor.
process.
Yes, Your Honor.
That is assumed.
Yes, Your Honor.
There is due process. He is asked to explain.
Mm. In that case, Your Honor, if they are already becoming inefficient of what is expected of them to be able to teach the students, Your Honor, I think it's a valid argument for the university to consider.
You can consider it as a lawful cause.
Yes,
Not
Your
a
Honor.
valid, not only a valid argument, but can you consider it a lawful cause?
If it
So you
is,
can terminate an employee for a lawful, for a just cause, for a lawful cause.
yes, Your Honor, if that professor is no longer able to do his or her job, Your Honor, as expected within his or her job description, Your Honor, or what is required by the university, it can be done so, Your Honor, for as long as, of course, he's afforded with the due process of law.
Okay. Presently, you are uh, serving as interim national president. Before you were the national president of the Association of Law Students. Why interim? Your term expired like that?
Yes, Your Honor. Last July, we have uh, we have already successfully completed our term, but we are caught in the situation of the pandemic, Your Honor, that we cannot have our national convention. So, and it, it would be difficult, Your Honor, to leave the association at the most difficult and trying times of legal education when everybody is adjusting and clamoring for academic freeze, academic ease, and academic break. So, in consultation, Your Honor, with the different law schools, law student governments, we served in an interim term capacity until November 1, Your Honor, and we have successfully completed our term. So right now, Your Honor, I'm no longer the national president because there's a newly elected national president already, Your Honor.
So you are no longer the interim national president. But
Uh,
as a former president, have you come across the proposed Magna Carta for students?
yes, Your Honor. There was a proposal. Actually, the proponent,
Were
Your
you a participant in that, in, in drafting the Magna Carta for law students?
I have been actively involved, Your Honor, in the sense that, for example, Your Honor, because one of my directors is the proponent of the technical working group on Magna Carta of Law Students. And since both the Student Welfare and Development, Your Honor, and the Magna Carta of Law Students are initiatives of Legal Education Board, I think one of my co-applicants here in JBC is the chairman of the TWG on Magna Carta of Law Students. So there would
The
be
one
times
from
that we,
the one from Bicol?
yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
So there would be times that we would really have to talk and to consolidate, Your Honor.
Have you learned what are the essential rights included in that draft Magna Carta?
I believe, Your Honor, today is their public consultation. The last time I know, Your Honor, I think it would protect the the PWDs. I think it advocates for an inclusive policy for law students. It's just that they might have undergone revision, Your Honor, that uh, I have not been aware anymore, Your Honor. I think it will depend on the output today.
Anyway, it is just a draft.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you impose that on the school?
That is one of the concerns of law deans
Yes.
yesterday in our public consultation, Your Honor. Some of the provisions within it, the law deans said it is restrictive and it encroaches on their academic freedom. And we respect that, Your Honor. And that is why it is still subject for revision. And that is also the reason why there's public consultation, so we can come up with a better policy, Your Honor. Then, if for example, if the Philippine Association of Law Schools would not accept it, Your Honor, we are very much open and to really correct it, Your Honor, and to come up with a better policy that is in win-win situation for the legal stakeholders of the legal community, Your Honor.
So you just craft the draft that you will be. Anyway, you are consulting them, so
Yes,
you
Your Honor.
know what they do not want, and
Yes.
they know what you want also. So I think
Yes, Your Honor.
you will meet.
It's still a long process.
Oh. I think that will be all. Mr. Suelo,
Thank you,
good
Justice.
luck and your excuse. Thank you very much for your attendance
Thank you, Your
this
Honor.
interview.
Salamat po.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, Justice Mendoza. That ends the public panel interview of Mr. John Michael A. Suelo. Thank you, and we bid you good luck, Mr. Suelo. Have a nice day.
Tony Ann.
Attorney Leia, the next candidate. Okay. Your Honors, the last but not the least of the 11 candidates for the position of Legal Education Board Regular Member representing the law student sector, who will be interviewed today, is Ms. Leslie Diane D. Torres. Good morning, Ms. Torres. The first to ask you questions is Honorable Judge Franklin J. de Monteverde. Your Honor, Judge de Monteverde, please.
Thank you, Attorney Ann.
Welcome, Your Honor.
Okay, good morning, Ms. Torres.
Morning, Your Honor.
How are you called, Leslie or Diane?
Leslie, sir.
Leslie. Okay. You are 25 years old and still studying law.
Yes, sir.
What year are you in now?
Your Honor, currently I'm in my 5th year.
On your 5th year?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you'll be graduating in July.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll be graduating hopefully this July.
And that would somehow be a disadvantage to you. Because if the appointment should come out after you have graduated, then you will no longer be qualified. For
That is correct, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You work as a consultant at in the office of Representative Matugas of Surigao del Sur or del Norte.
Yes, Your Honor. I work as a consultant part-time for his office. I've started working.
Part-time.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And as a consultant, what specifically was your work there? Merely to advise him?
Your Honor, my job as his consultant would be to look into legal documents and advise him on certain matters. For instance, when there would be a budget hearing or a consultation, the congressman would ask for my opinion on certain matters. So I would be checking a lot of the appropriations materials, the expenditure programs. I would also be looking into a lot of legislative bills to assess their legality and also check certain provisions of the bills that were pending before the House of Representatives.
Did you at any instance work for the government?
Your Honor, aside from this, I did not work for the government. I have not been able to, although I was a research assistant in the UP College of Law for the Law Center before I worked as a consultant in the House of Representatives.
What was the nature of your work there? Temporary or permanent or what?
Your Honor, I also worked part-time as a research assistant in the UP Law Center. I worked to check the bench books of the different civil procedures for the judges. So I worked with other Court of Appeals judges, RTC judges, and family court judges in assessing different forms that were to be revised and to be used by the courts.
So your work there was on a permanent basis.
Part-time, Your Honor.
Part-time?
I wasn't able, yes, Your Honor. I wasn't able to work full-time since right after graduation from college, I went straight to law school.
Then how come you were required to submit a SALEN?
Your Honor, because I work for the Office of Congressman Matugas, I was required to submit a SALAN as well. And for this position, in the application and the process of vying for the position of LEB representative for the students, I was requested to submit a SALAN as well.
Okay. Now you mentioned there that you are the sole proprietor of Dayanara Enterprises. What is this firm about?
Your Honor,
Cosmetics?
it's a no, Your Honor, it's a small business that I have here in Cebu to also help for my finances. So we basically sell chemicals and we supply them. Usually, these are cleaning chemicals for industrial concerns of hotels, schools. So I do it also on the side so that I can help out in the family.
You are from Cebu?
Yes, Your Honor. I am born and raised in Cebu, but I study in Manila. Except right now because I'm also in Cebu since the
You are now
quarantine.
in Cebu.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm in
Bisaya
Cebu.
ka di ay.
Ay, Bisaya jud, Your Honor.
Matay.
Nakabisda.
Sige. Leslie, you are a good speaker.
Your Honor.
Also a debater and an orator. You were champions in those categories. However, it's very impressive, no? I must commend you for that. However, these accolades were merely based on your stint as a student. You lack the expertise, the knowledge, or the experience of a professional. So how do you think a member of the moot court team had helped you in the study of law and in your application for the Legal Education Board?
Your Honor, since I entered law school, I also joined in several moot court competitions. And in the process, I have learned how to research, how to use my time, and more importantly, how to advocate for concerns that I believe have legal basis. So what we do is we search for the legal basis and put forward our advocacies to be able to convince a panel of judges that a certain policy is mistaken or has no foundation under international law. Admittedly, my experience in moot court has been very much based on international law and not on our domestic law. However, I believe whatever practices I was able to develop and the skills I was able to develop in this process helped me as a student in so much as I was able to take care of my time. I was able to understand really what it meant to be able to put forward a certain cause and put in so much work and so much effort just to understand the law behind it. And I feel that in a way, this can also help me with my application. Although this is not professional and it is purely academic, and it is an exercise of thought, really, I do feel like whatever skills I learned can be applied as a member of the legal education board, because more importantly, I am a representative for the students. And should I be a representative for the students, then I should also be able to assess how much work it takes to be able to balance my studies and to be able to balance as well my extracurricular activities. A lot of the students are also working, and I was able to do and join moot court competitions while I was working and handling a few businesses on the side as well. So I do feel like all these things combined do make a good case as to why I should be at least considered for the position, Your Honor.
Okay, Leslie, between the oral communication skill and writing skill, which is the better tool for lawyering?
For lawyering, Your Honor, I actually believe, in as much as I have spent more time speaking publicly, I actually believe it is the writing part. We only, as lawyers, get to have a stage when we appear before courts and talk about our certain concerns and advocate about them. But it's always in the writing, in the research, and in putting down into words certain thoughts and legal concepts that really move people. And more importantly, I think when we write a certain material, when we write a certain stand, it transcends through time. It can be read by generations after, and not just the few minutes that I have standing in a podium and trying to address and move people. Although admittedly that can move people as well, I believe what we write and the quality of what we write really shows our capacity and really is a reflection of what we are really as lawyers.
Okay.
Hopefully, on my end.
Seldom can we find a person who can speak well and at the same time write proficiently. Are you both?
I like to believe I'm both, Your Honor. In the process of not just speaking, I was also able to write my speeches. In fact, I write all my speeches down, so much so that every word I would say should be written down for me. But more importantly, in the process of applying for all these moot court competitions and debate competitions, I did a lot of research and I would make a lot of papers for them. Hence, we wrote memorials. These are written pleadings we would submit to different bodies, and we were able to show our expertise as well as a team in being able to win awards through these writings. But more importantly, Your Honor, I think it's also making sure that what you say, the cohesiveness of what you say, and how it appears on paper is a reflection really of your ability to write as well. So I would like to think, modesty aside, that I am a proficient
both.
writer as well. Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Have you read the Non versus Danes, GR number 89317 of 20 May 1990 decision of the Supreme Court?
Unfortunately, Your Honor, I don't believe my memory serves me well to remember if I have read this case. I would.
I have two questions unta diha. Pero since you have not yet read it, so I'll skip it na lang muna.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
The DND-UP Accord requires that prior notice be given by the AFP intending to conduct military or police operations in any of the UP campuses to the university president, the chancellor, or the dean of the regional unit concerned, or their respective officers in charge in the event of their absence. And for academic discussion, you think the agreement violates the rules of court, since the rules do not require that prior notice be given before a warrant can validly be implemented?
Your Honor, I don't think this violates the rules of court. Primarily, I think this is a contract between two different parties, and this should confirm. But more importantly, Your Honors, in terms of searches, I don't think the same rule applies. The situation at hand is not a case where we are looking for criminals or dissidents. I think, in essence, what has to be given consideration more than anything when we talk about the D&D Accord is really the academic freedom that UP should have as an institution. I stand very with personal indignance for this, Your Honor, because I am also from UP. But I believe, Your Honor, that what is important is that we also look back in the history that has happened. And we have seen in the past that the law sometimes has been taken and has been used for different purposes, and also to an extent that has infringed on several rights. And in this case, it has infringed on the rights of students to be able to practice their own thought and to be free from any pressure from the state. But also, it has infringed on the right of UP as an institution as well to be able to cater and grow and have these students without any interference. And I think, Your Honor, this is what's important. So it should not be considered a violation, primarily because it also hinges upon a constitutional right, which is the right of academic freedom.
Okay. What is academic freedom and what is its parameters? What are its parameters?
Your Honor, academic freedom is a constitutionally granted right. It's given to higher educations, and more importantly, Your Honors, it is to allow students and academic institutions to exercise free thought and be able to teach and cultivate ideas in the way they deem best. I believe, Your Honors, that academic freedom, while it is a constitutionally granted right and while it also has a paramount importance, it also has its own limits. But only the Supreme Court in several cases has recognized that the limits of academic freedom should be looked into very strictly. And that's why we look at the clear and present danger and overriding public interest before we can really assess and uphold academic freedom, as if there is a clear and present danger and if there's a overriding public interest, then it is important to be able to recognize that there are also limitations to academic freedom. So in this case, Your Honor, I think academic freedom does have its limits, but until the limits have been crossed, then academic freedom should be respected.
You merely spoke of academic freedom involving the students, but there are two other two main views of academic freedom, and this is from the point of view of the institution and from the point of view of the members of the academy. Let's go to the academic freedom involving the institution. What do you understand by it?
Your Honor, academic freedom of institutions is guaranteed to make sure that these institutions have this free space to be able to teach, that its premises as well is also respected, and more importantly, that there is no pressure in terms of being able to curtail the quality and the substance of the education that it gives. In terms of faculties, Your Honor, or the instructors part of that part of the institution, academic freedom with respect to them also guarantees that they have the right to be able to teach however they deem best, and more importantly, that they have the right to teach what it is that they think should be imparted to their students, that there should be no pressure on their end as well to determine what they should be teaching their students, or they shouldn't be silenced as to any matter or any idea that they think is best. So in a way, Your Honor, academic freedom in terms of the faculty and in terms of these institutions really allowing them to have all the manners available to be able to impart impart lessons and give and provide education to their students.
So whenever there's a conflict between the academic freedom of the students and that of the institution, which would prevail? Which would do you think would prevail over the other?
Your Honors, if the rights between the two parties in terms of academic freedoms cannot be balanced, then I think it should be the right of the institution that should prevail over the right of the students. The right of the institution should also be based on its ability to determine the quality of the students it gives out to society. And I think to a large extent, as a student, academic freedom, the limitation to their academic freedom is also given the moment that they enter an institution and they accept that the institution has the right to curtail and determine what should be ingested by these students.
How do you define democracy?
Your Excellency, I believe democracy, as it has transformed now, really is understanding the masses and the what that masses want. I think it also looks into the quality of how the masses are able to make its decisions and whether that decision was well informed and well educated. But more importantly, your honor, democracy also stems into the sociology of being able to make that choice. So it's not just about education, it's not just about information, it's also the quality of having access to even making a choice to begin with. And I feel like, in a way, that makes democracy a very, very complex concept, because it not only talks about whether there are enough people voting for something or whether there is a majority, but it really looks into the quality of that majority. And I think that's what democracy is at its core.
So how about socialism?
Socialism, your honor, I believe your socialism is one that should look into equalities and understanding that there are certain aspects of oppression that exists, and these are usually structural. And so socialism exists when we remove those structures and we create reforms. And sometimes other people move as far as overhauling the entire system. But I believe, in a way, as long as we deprive inequalities, deprive people of inequalities and remove those barriers for them, where we achieve not only equality but also equity, then there is an achievement of socialism.
Communism. How do
Communism,
you
your honor.
define communism?
Communism for me is more of assessing the government and what however it runs. So there's usually a centralized government, and then it controls most of the resources of the state and allocates them, hopefully fairly and equally, to its people. And I think that's what communism believes. It believes that as a thought, capitalism or other structures wherein people can be favored and people can tend to monopolize or have a large control over certain structures, can be detrimental in a way that it does not give other people the rights and the resources that they should be granted. And hence the state enters and takes that job away from the certain private sectors.
Okay. Among the three, which would you prefer in a government level? A communist government, a socialist one, or a democratic government?
Your honor, I would always prefer a democratic government. I do recognize that there are perils and there are necessary harms to democracy, especially if it is unchecked. However, I think, in principle, democracy is the better alternative, considering that it is the choices of the people that governs how they should live, what the policies are, or how the structures of their government are. And I think that's important, because if you are a person who is part of that system or part of that society, then your choice should be granted paramount importance, to a sense that your willingness to abide by society, your willingness to contribute to society, and your willingness to be a member of that society and make sure that society moves forward is significantly limited to how you feel your choices are being considered or how your right or your say is being heard. Which is why I think democracy is important, because I feel when people are more engaged, the more likely they are to contribute and add to the society.
Okay, Leslie, assuming that you will be shortlisted and appointed while still a student, what would be your long-term and short-term programs for the Legal Education Board?
Your honor, if I were to be appointed, if I can still make it, I would hope to first help with the processing of the Magna Carta for law students. And I would also allow, so that we can make sure that law students are not only being heard, but are also respected in the industry and in the academe. Also, Your Honor, I would like to put forward a space wherein the mental health of law students are being heard. I understand that everyone talks about mental health these days, and I think that's for a good reason. I think the problem with law school in general is that it takes so much of the time and effort of a person, and it makes us question ourselves to incredible extents. that we often lose our sense of self. And I feel that this is a problem not only faced by this generation, but even the past generations of lawyers. I just feel that this society might be a bit more sensitive to them. But I still generally feel that there should be a space where law students are granted that, and there should be mechanisms to safeguard that space for students.
Okay, Leslie, that was my last question. Dagan salamat and
Salamat kaayo,
good
Your
luck.
Honor.
Good luck
Thank you,
kanimo.
Your Honor.
Ah.
Salamat, Your Honor.
Sige.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, Judge De Monteverde.
Thank you, Attorney Ann.
It is now the turn of Honorable Justice Noel Jimenez Tiham to interview Ms. Torres. Your Honor, Justice Tiham, please.
Thank you, Attorney Ann. Good morning,
Welcome, Your Honor.
Ms. Torres.
Good morning, Your Honor.
What do you intend to do after you graduate, after you pass the bar, and you become a lawyer? What are your plans?
Your Honor, I want to work for the government. I want to at least find a way where there is a space for me to help in terms of public policy. Hopefully, in a situation where I can use my legal knowledge to help development, economic development, most importantly. I was hoping to enter into areas where I could help in terms of poverty alleviation, growing small to medium enterprises. This also touches a lot into my background and my upbringing as a person, which is why I believe this would be my most likely track should I pass the bar, God willing.
Yeah, from your perspective, what are the urgent problems of law students, and what solutions will you propose in the Legal Education Board?
Your Honors, my assessment should be currently the most pressing one is the pandemic and how we have shifted into a rather online platform. In a way, this not only prohibited students from seeing people, from learning from the professors firsthand, but in a way, it also made them it made an area where it was so difficult because we are trying to weigh and balance our time as family members and time as students. And the problem with learning online and learning in the four corners of our homes is that the line gets blurred so very often. And I think that is in and of itself a problem that should be addressed. Although admittedly, there's little that can be done in terms of really changing one's circumstances. And there would be almost impossible to be able to control those circumstances. But I think in a way, it should always be about understanding and assessing how best a student can be assessed and can be tested, and how best a student can learn given these situations. So I think, Your Honor, if I were to put forward any plan of action, it would be with respect to how students are being taught, how students are being assessed, and how students are given the materials, most importantly, especially given that not everyone has the same ability to concoct resources or to be able to have them. So I think it's also with that respect that I would like to forward that students are given the opportunity as well to take those circumstances into consideration. I recognize that so many institutions have been very, very generous, and they have been very helpful in terms of understanding that this is a process that everyone goes through. It's not just the students who are having a hard time. The professors are having a hard time, especially since they're not as knowledgeable with computers and the internet as much as students are. And so I recognize that it also is a process for everyone. But I hope to be able to reach a point where everyone, all sectors actually, are happy with the current setup that is given.
From your perspective, is legal education attainable through online learning and correspondence? Is that attainable without the need for law students to be physically be present inside the classroom?
Your
And
Honor,
with or without the pandemic, is that attainable?
Your Honor, I actually believe it is attainable. I think it will take steps to get there and have a perfect system. But I do think that the current system allows us to be able to discuss in the same way. We are able to talk face to face, which is why we're having an interview like this. But I think, Your Honor, in a way, legal education also has to move, I believe, into learning and methods of learning that aren't simply Socratic. And I think that's why the pandemic has forced us to shift. And online learning has really been about giving materials to students, allotting time to students, and being able to check whether the current ways of assessing students still ring true to how students are actually learning, because they can write something, they can provide something which without having full certainty that they have ingested the material. And so I believe that in a way, the online platform or online legal education can be possible and is possible if you're able to marry the ways of learning in terms of not only providing writing and research output, having tests, but also doing Socratic method in ways such as this. So I believe, Your Honors, it's possible. It will take a few more steps to be able to reach an ideal method of teaching, but I think it is possible.
From your perspective, do students learn more about legal education outside the classroom rather than inside the classroom?
Your Honor, I would speak from my personal experience, and I believe that in as much as the classroom is important, there are instances wherein a student can learn better in the comforts of their own home. Last semester, I took a class where I told myself I have never learned as much as I did in a span of 5 months.
Isn't it that inside the classroom, you discuss theories, not the practical side of the law? Is it better to bring the students to a law office? Is it better to bring the law students to a courtroom? Is it better to bring law students to a bank or a commercial establishment to understand business law?
Your Honor, with respect to certain sectors such as businesses or banking, I do think that it's not necessary to bring students to the premises to be able to learn the law. However, in my experience as well, since I have taken clinical legal education and I have taken an internship with our legal aid, I learned that it was also really important for us to have actual experience in the courtroom. I've done my part as an online legal intern, and I could see how I was very limited in terms of application and really learning the law and applying the law. For the most part, Your Honor, I could only send materials out and ask students or staff from UP to bring them to the court, as I could not do them myself, since most of the cases I've been hearing are based in Quezon City. So I think, Your Honor, with respect to court procedures, with respect to processes in the court, then it's also important to be able to step in the courtroom. However, with respect to other sectors or other fields, it's not necessary.
But new lawyers, those who have recently passed the bar examinations and have taken their oath, will tell you almost unanimously that law in theory inside the classroom is far different from law in practice outside in the real world. So how do you prepare students for that reality?
I agree with this, Your Honor. I do believe that the law is very different the moment we step out of either our homes or our classrooms. But in terms of preparation and in terms of the current setup that we have so far, I think the only thing we can do best is really to be able to search and understand how to immerse ourselves in these sectors, because the current pandemic does not allow us. However, should the pandemic be better, or should the situation be better, and should we be allowed to enter the premises, then I think also in a way it's important to learn these processes, to step out and assess and learn them and ingest the material so that we can practically apply what we know. But I believe, Your Honor, this goes hand in hand. Theory might be best learned in the classroom, while practice can be best learned outside.
What is the advantage of a female commissioner in the Legal Education Board, from your perspective, compared to their male counterpart?
Your Honor, I wouldn't claim that there is a difference in how sexes would um, present themselves. Although I do
Female,
recognize,
are female commissioners more perceptive, more persuasive, more enlightening,
I hope that would be the case, Your
more
Honor.
profound?
I hope that would be the case, but I wouldn't claim that this is a general rule. However, Your Honor, I do believe that there is a value in putting a woman for the most reasons that we exist in a still, although admittedly the Philippines is very it's for gender equality, and we've seen significant improvements. I do believe that in terms of having a presence and making sure that women have a position or have a space where they are able to take their stand, then I think that's also important in a way. But with respect to sexes, Your Honor, or the ability of each sex, I wouldn't claim to be an expert in assessing whether one is better than the other in terms of whether
As,
they could fulfill a
as a
position.
commissioner representing the student sector, will you be articulating your own thoughts about the best interest of students?
No, Your Honors. I think only to the extent that my thoughts would concur with what the student bodies want, then that would be when I would probably talk about my own thoughts. But more importantly, I am a spokesperson. I am a representative of a body of students that not only are in one region, but span the entire country. So I have no right to be able to talk about myself in that position, or at least hog the space to talk about concerns that interest me.
Is education a constitutional right?
Your Honor,
Is
is
education a constitutional right?
Your Honor, education is, in terms of the Constitution, it is granted and it is guaranteed that people have the ability to access it. However, in terms of legal education, I wouldn't say that it is to be granted, although the ability to access legal education should be allowed and should be given to students as well, Your Excellency, Your Honor, especially for students who do want to become lawyers. I don't think it's in the position of anyone to deprive them of that opportunity.
So, if somebody wants to go to law schools, but he cannot for financial reasons, and there was this case of janitors in government offices who saved money, who studied, and then they became lawyers. So, my point is, how would you address the expensive, prohibited tuition fees in law schools that acts as a disincentive for those who would like to join law school and become lawyers?
Your Honors, I understand and I recognize this concern. There is a glaring and disincentive for a lot of students who do not have the resources. However, if I were to address this, one, I would fight for the betterment of educations that are free and are relatively cheaper. But more importantly, Your Honors, I would also fight for schools to be able to save spaces and allot slots for merit-based and financial needs scholarships. I think the scholarships are really crucial and important because there are so many students who, or at least students who want to enter law school who don't have the capacity and don't have the resources to enter. Even students who have already been working, I know a lot of people who have worked for a few years and still consider law school to be very, very expensive. I recognize that that still exists as a hindrance. And so I would fight for a lot of merit based and financial based scholarships in institutions, that they would allot a portion of their budget or income for these students. We've done, and I've seen this in a lot of institutions as well, but hopefully we can expand the reach for this.
Do you agree with the proposition that legal education is a contract imbued with public interest?
Yes, Your Honor. I think
Now, if
it,
if if it is a contract imbued with public interest, is it important that students should be given quality education? And what recourse do students have if they are denied quality education in law schools?
Your Honor, I think it's important that students are given quality education. It is incumbent upon the institution that gives that education to make sure that the professors that teach the materials that are given and the course study are relative. It's important that the quality of the education is present and it's there and it's accessible. And should there be an instance, Your Honor, that students do not have access or that the quality is impaired, I think students should be able to, one, have a mechanism to be able to voice out their concerns with their different administrations. I think students should be allowed that space to not be afraid to tell their students and their institutions that they are not learning as well. And if that doesn't work, Your Honor, internally, then I believe that there should also be a mechanism wherein students voice out their concerns of their institution should the administration not be able to heed their concerns on how to get better education.
Now, talking about academic freedom of law students, should law students have a say or a choice on what law books to read?
Your Honors, I believe that students should be able to determine what books they want to read. But with respect to the academic freedom of the instructor or the institution, if they were to suggest a reading material, then it should be given that right as well. It's also the right of the instructor and the institution to determine how to conduct their classes, to teach their students, and what is the material that they teach. Should students disagree with it, they also have the corresponding responsibility to ingest themselves with other pieces of knowledge and pieces of information from other sources. So while they can say and give feedback or recommendations as to what materials they like reading, essentially it infringes also upon the academic freedoms of their instructors and of the institution if the students should decide what material they should be able to read. That I think defeats the purpose of education. Your Honor.
Permissible for a law student to stand up and leave the classroom if he thinks the law professor is teaching nonsense or teaching an erroneous interpretation of the law in the exercise of academic freedom?
I don't believe this, Your Honor. I don't think it is right for a student to act out in such a manner. I have seen so many instances where students disagree with professors or they feel disrespected by professors. But this also means, Your Honors, that with the student is a responsibility to show respect to our professors as well. If they believe that the professors talking nonsense or if they believe that they know better in terms of the law, then I think it is still incumbent on the student to show respect despite all those circumstances. And should they have any form of disagreement, to voice out those disagreements in proper and respectable courses or methods. And should those methods not be available, then to voice out their concerns on other ways to different parties. I think, in a way, Your Excellencies, what is important is that even in a space where there can be disagreements, mutual respect should be had. And I think more than anything, the student has to continue respecting professors, continue respecting the institution, and the way the law is being taught.
Is regulation antithetical to academic freedom insofar as legal education is concerned?
For legal education, Your Honor, I don't believe it is antithetical to academic freedom so long as it does not infringe on the core values that academic freedom tries to defend. I think, Your Honor, in terms of regulation, we also have to look into the fact that there are interests in making and purposes and values and reasons why we need to make sure that the quality of legal education is relatively the same across the board, or that it is of quality, and so that everyone has access to that. And I think the reason why this, or in terms of regulation, this is acceptable is because there is an overriding public interest, and the public interest is to make sure that the rule of law is upheld and to make sure that the law is taught in the best way possible to the students, because it goes back to society, the benefit of how law students are being taught. It goes back to the justice system, and it goes back to how the law ultimately rules the land. And I think that is one of the reasons why regulations are not antithetical to academic freedom.
You are a law student in the University of the Philippines,
Yes,
which
Your Honor.
includes many outstanding public servants, presidents of the country. It also produced Jose Maria Sison and Noor Miswari. Are there leftist organizations in your school?
I don't. I'm not aware, Your Honor,
If
of
there are leftist organizations in your school, theoretically, if there are, and if they recruit law students from your school, is that constitutionally permissible from your perspective?
if they recruit, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. I think if
Recruit,
they're
leftist organizations recruit law students from your school to join the CPP NPA. Is that still within the ambit of academic freedom? And from your perspective, is that constitutionally permissible?
No, Your Honor, it would not be within the ambit of academic freedom if there are leftist organizations that try to expand their grounds and overthrow the state. However, I think, Your Honor, that while this is not permissible constitutionally in terms of whether this protection is still granted, it cannot be because the overriding interest is to make sure that there is a state to go home to, that there is a state that is governed and that it's governed by the rule of law. And whatever threats or dissidents that try to overthrow the state, which is protected by the law, that the law students are trying to uphold and are trying to study, then in a way it would no longer be within the ambit of academic freedom because it's not within the prerogatives and it counteracts whatever values and reasons they are studying the law.
If law students are recruited, I said if law
Yes,
students are recruited by leftist organizations to join the CPP NPA, is that a question of choice over which the school, in the exercise of academic freedom and in the exercise of academic obligation to make the school premises safe for students, constitutionally permissible? Will you treat it as a choice over which the school has absolutely no control, and therefore that is a choice of the student recruited, and the school does not assume any kind of academic obligation from your perspective? That's my last question.
Your Honor, with respect to the obligation of the school, I believe it is the obligation of the school to instill values that are not or are for the protection of the state and for the protection of the laws of the land. And so, while this is a choice to make, if ever a student would join, while this is a choice that the student makes, I also believe that it is a concurrent obligation in the state or in the institution to make sure that the choice of that student was made with knowledge and made with information, that there was a lot of and a plethora of ideas in that student's minds that would counteract any of the choices or any of the reasons why he would join leftist organizations. Hence, I think to an extent, it is an obligation of the university or of the school rather to make sure that the values and the principles are existent and that they are trying to balance and counteract each other. And whatever choice the student makes is on that student.
It's an obligation arising from a contract imbued with public interest, correct?
I
So
believe so, Your Honor.
the school, if it fails, is at least morally responsible, if not
I believe,
legally responsible. Thank you very
I
much,
believe so.
and good luck.
Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Attorney Yan.
Yes, it's my turn.
Thank you, Justice Tiham. The next to interview Ms. Torres is Honorable Toribio E. Ilo Jr.
All right, thank you.
Good
Sorry,
afternoon.
Michelle.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Yes, still morning. All right, morning, Leslie.
Good morning, Your
Oh,
Honor.
nice name, Leslie Diane Dumas Sapal. Your mother's from what place? At Zamboanga?
Yes, Your Honor. She's from Zamboanga del Norte.
Ah, del Norte. And your father is from
Negros, Your Honor. Negros Oriental.
You mentioned that you're now at the College of Law of UP,
Yes, Your Honor.
but in the PDS you stated that your residence is in what place?
Currently, Your Honor, I'm in Cebu City.
You are in Cebu City now?
Yes, Your Honor. I was born and raised here, Your Honor. I only went to Manila for my studies.
All right, in studying in Manila, particularly at UP Diliman, Quezon
Yes, Your
City.
Honor. Yes,
And
Your
where do
Honor.
you stay there? Where do you stay?
I rented a condominium, Your Honor, during my
Wow.
stay in Quezon City.
Condominium, not in the area, not in the area of UP.
I've had rather traumatic experiences, Your Honor, so I was able to justify my way into to finding a rather a different environment for me.
You had a traumatic experience?
Yes, Your Honor. I was able to dorm before, and I had roommates, and there were terrible things that had happened, and there are also yes, Your Honor. So
Considering that you were brought or you even finished your elementary and high school at the Catholic school, St. Teresa's, and what's the other one?
University of San Carlos, Your Honor.
University of San Carlos, Tagala.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may have a different culture when you step at COP Diliman at the time.
Yes, Your Honor. I was surprised that they weren't praying.
That there were, ano? What?
That there were no prayers before, Your Honor. There were prayers when
Ah,
everything started or ended. But when I went to UP, there were no prayers. I was very surprised, and then I realized it was a state institution.
but everything is free.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Anyway, so you were born, born and brought with different culture.
Yes, Your Honor.
Right. You, like I stated in your PDS, that you obtained a bachelor's degree, UP Diliman, and cum
Yes,
laude.
Your Honor.
What's your major?
I
Major
was a
in
business major, Your Honor. Business
business.
administration, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Why did you not put it here in your PDS?
About my course, Your Honor. I believe I sent a new copy because I missed out that part. Apparently, I apologize, Your Honor.
Bachelor of major in BA,
Yes, Your Honor. Business administration.
and you like I stated that you're about to graduate this coming July 2021.
Yes, Your Honor. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Alright, how will you conceptualize your academic aptitude rather?
Is this, may I ask, Your Honor, if this is particular to law school?
And in UP, would you say that you are doing well in school at the College of Law of UP?
Right now, Your Honor, I believe I'm doing better now. I had a difficult time when I started UP, when I started in law school, actually. Modesty aside, I was doing well as a student ever since I was young. And then I went to UP when I went to law school, and I had failed terribly. I failed certain classes, and that was my first time failing classes. And I don't believe I was able really to cope with the hardships and understanding that failures are part of who we are, and they help us grow. For a time, I really struggled. And it was also because I had a mentality that I had one foot out the door in law school. I wasn't certain really what I wanted to do in life. And for a very long time, I felt very lost and very misplaced. And so I obviously I performed badly in those years. I wouldn't say that few mistakes and a few failures determine my quality and my ability to determine what I am as a student. I think I am doing significantly better now, but I would also be able to come clean and say that I have been into the ends of the spectrum. I have been told by a professor that I was a terrible student, and I've been told by another that I was his best student in his entire stay of teaching. And so I believe that I was able to be both. I understood failure, I saw failure, I was the embodiment of failure, and I got to come out of that. And so while I am better now as a student academically, I also would like to recognize that I had troubles, I had difficulty, and I got back from it.
You had troubles. What kind of troubles?
In terms of, but only in terms of really committing myself to the work that is law school and the work that law school required of me. For quite some time, Your Honor, I was uncertain if I wanted really to be a lawyer, because I had a narrow image of what lawyering was like. And when I finally understood that it was not about lawyering, but it was rather knowing the law and applying the law and defending the law and fixing the law when it needs to be fixed, that's when I learned that. And I realized that I'm where I wanted to be, and that the decision to stay, or the 3 years that I was uncertain, paid off.
Yeah, that any relationship or any relationship or
Relationship
any
in
love?
terms of Your Honor, I actually have a boyfriend, and my boyfriend also went to law school with me. We entered law school together. And he did very, very well in law school. He was part of the law paper journal. He was also with me in the moot competitions that I joined. So he did very well in law school. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was inspired to do better. But I also understood that there were reasons why I was different. When I saw the person I was with when we were starting out in law school, he was so certain of his dream of being a lawyer that he worked so hard. And to me, it became so glaring that at first I didn't have the same dream. And so I think that was also one of the reasons why I had a hard time, because I saw people work hard, persevere, and become resilient for a dream and for a vision, which I did not necessarily share. And so it was difficult for me in the beginning, but I was able to come around, and I realized that while we may have different visions, while we may have different dreams, we all are currently on the same boat and are working towards the same things. And so that's when I came to terms with everything, Your Honor, and I did better.
Good. Thank you. By the way, Leslie, what's your weight? 43 kilos?
43, Your Honor. I'm very small as a person.
How about your height? 1.5 meters.
I think that's around 5 feet, Your Honor. Barely 5 feet, but
5 feet and a
I'm a
half.
very small. Yes, Your Honor. I think I'm a very small woman, so I try to compensate with the depth of my voice.
All right, by the way, let's go back to your academic. What is your
Yes.
batch standing now?
I'm afraid, Your Honor, that I don't know the batch standing. We don't release batch standings until at least we ask for them from the college secretary. So I'm afraid I can't answer the question.
And what is your current GPA?
My current,
Knowledge also.
I'm not also sure, Your Honor. My grades are still coming in because the deadline was last January 22 for the last semester, and we've been giving numerical grades this semester.
And
So I'm
did
uncertain.
sorry,
Yes, Your Honor.
did I hear you right that you're about to graduate this July
Yes, Your Honor.
2021?
Hopefully, Your Honor. Yes.
All right. If appointed in the lab, how do you plan to manage your time in discharging your duties as said member, a law student, and a consultant in the House of Representatives?
Your Honor, my load for the remainder of the semester is quite light. And more importantly, my job also in Congress at times is light. I think we've reached the point where there isn't a lot because we've gone past budget season, our proposals have been approved. And so for the meantime, although I do recognize that if I were to assume things got heavy, I still believe that I am capable of managing my responsibilities in terms of my studies and my work, and hopefully the position as well. I've been able to juggle a lot of responsibilities for the longest time. I've been running few businesses on the side as well, and I've been able to show that I can come out of it alive and I can do my job efficiently and effectively. I think it really boils down to how much time is being spent to each activity or each endeavor, and more importantly, how that time is spent. So I think if I were to spend my time effectively doing the things that I need to do at the time that I need to do them, and these during the span of time that I'm only allowing myself to do them, that I can do a lot of things really. And I think one of them would be to continue my work, continue my education, and also serve.
All right, tell me about this Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society. Did I pronounce it right? It's Phi
I think
or
it's I'm not so sure of Your Honor. It's an award that they give to students who I believe reach a certain general weighted average upon graduation. And so they ask us all to attend a ceremony and they would give us new medals so that they would recognize our academic achievements. I was invited to this, Your Honor, in college for when I graduated my undergraduate course.
so it's
I
a
believe it's
society.
an honor. It's an honor society, Your Honor. Yes,
It's
although I'm
on
not a
an
part. Yes,
honor
Your Honor.
society, but not a sorority.
No, Your
Not a
Honor.
sorority.
It's not a sorority, Your Honor.
All right, Leslie, why should you be nominated over other applicants who, apart from being recognized mooters and debaters as well, are on top of their batches and are even leaders of their respective government bodies? Why
Your
should you be? Yes, please.
Your Honor, I wouldn't go in so far as imposing to say or judging to say that I am a better candidate than most people. Although I do believe that each of us have our own skill sets, and what we are able to do, what we were able to accomplish, or what we're able to become part of are really determined by our circumstances. And I think that for me, at the very least, while I am not the things that other people are, the things that I have done, what I have been able to do and how I have been shaped by them also would reflect how I am able to dispense the rules and the responsibilities of this obligation. I believe, Your Honor, that my experience has taught me to become the kind of person that I am today, unsacrificing, resilient, and more importantly, incredibly dedicated and hardworking. And I know that other people can be this as well. But in terms of the quality, what kind of output, there really is a mark of how a person is. And that's when people distinguish themselves really, what work they do, how they manage to do their work. And it's not necessarily about what they've been able to do in the past, but how they can move forward. I think our past achievements, our past positions, or what we were able to do only serve as reflections of what we can do, but they are not binding in a sense that we are not or will not be able to do more in the future.
Leslie, how would you conceptualize and implement measures to improve the check and balance of the student government so that try to develop a better communication between the student body and the college?
Your Honor, with respect to the student bodies and the student governments, to be able to create a check and balance mechanism also means that from the grassroots levels, which means the tie between the student government and the students, there has to be a strong link, which means that in terms of being able to elect set students who will serve the student body, then there should be a strong link between the two so that we can really see and assess what concerns the students have. And these are unfiltered concerns that reach the student body or the student reach the student government. With respect to the student government and the college, I believe in terms of creating checks and balance mechanisms, I would conceptualize one to show where there is a feedback mechanism wherein the students and the student body has a way of giving out their grievances to the college, and then there is a method by which, or a forum or a space by which the college can sit down and discuss together with the student council these concerns. I believe that once there is a space for this grievance, where there is an allowance where people can say something without being hated on or being targeted by certain professors or certain staffs, I think that's when students are free really to voice out their concerns. And once there is a table wherein they can discuss those concerns with appropriate officials from the colleges, then I think that's also when there really is a dialogue between the two. And I think that particular dialogue is what we should work on to maintain that there is a check and balance so that students get to voice out their concerns. And in the same way, professors also get to voice out their concerns. I understand that students can be a handful, and most of the time they are very demanding. But I also wish that students recognize that the professors are always well intended and that they are also doing their best in terms of making sure that the students have quality education and they're being taught best. And I think that the only time that students or these sectors see eye to eye is when there is a roundtable, when they get to discuss these concerns.
All right. What is the limitation of a school's power of instilling discipline in its students?
Your Honor, I think in terms of instilling discipline to its students, a school can create its own code of conduct, rules and regulations, and disciplinary rules. And in terms of that, should there be a violation, then it's also upon the school to enforce these punishments or acts which discipline students. And so the schools can do that. But any more than that, Your Honor, any more than like putting academic thresholds or understanding that there are certain circumstances to prohibited acts done by students. Other than that, I don't believe that there should be more than anything that is allowed and granted by what the school states in its code of conduct and discipline. Because if we were to allow the school to discipline students in more manners, then it can also be detrimental to how students exercise the rights within the school, how students express themselves really and try to learn in the process.
So do you believe that there must be the proportion between the offense committed and the sanction imposed?
Yes, Your
Otherwise,
Honor.
so I still believe that spare the rod, spoil the child. You will still believe Maxim on that?
I'm the spoiled child, Your Honor. I'm not so sure. I just think that it should be important to make sure that students are disciplined still in the process without crossing the bounds of that allowable discipline.
All right. In Pimentel versus Legal Education Board, how did the court, I mean the Supreme Court, reconcile the state's regulatory and supervisory power and academic freedom?
If I may confirm, Your Honor, the Pimentel case was the one about the LSAT, the PhilSat, sorry.
The PhilSat.
Yes, Your Honor. In that case, Your Honor, in the PhilSat case, the court stated that while there are constitutional grounds and while academic freedom is addressed, there also are safeguards. And it assessed really the charter, the rules, the obligations, and the purpose of the Legal Education Board in terms of trying to see if it went beyond the bounds. And the court here ultimately decided that in a space where we want to make sure that we produce quality law students and that law schools in the attempt to do so, get to filter and determine whether we do get the quality students that we want. We also recognize that it should be accessible to all, given the specific the kind of education the legal system is. If we try to infringe on students' ability to want to become lawyers, it also looks into the fact that we forgot that the legal profession really is a profession that is not determined by a specific aptitude. And so there are several students who can aim to be this without having shown this particular aptitude, because knowledge of the law or the study of the law and legal education in general is not something that requires a specific skill set or a specific aptitude set. And so therefore, it shouldn't be within the bounds of legal education, or the legal education board rather, to impose these measures or to impose these strict parameters before students can enter. It would be unconstitutional because it infringes upon academic freedom and it infringes upon the school's ability to determine how to accept students as well.
And how will the state exercise supervision and regulation over education? That's simply the question.
Your Honor, in terms of regulation, the court here, if I remember correctly, stated that it's the Legal Education Board is a political body, and the executive has acted in terms of supervising the legal education, and so it can do so with Legal Education Board. However, there are certain policies or there are certain actions that the Legal Education Board cannot do in the attempt or in the endeavor to guarantee that legal education is of quality that is granted to students.
Simply, what can the state impose? What kind of regulations?
Your Honor, in terms of regulations, these would be for the typical, like the in terms of the kinds of measures being taught, the examinations afterwards, the bar examinations, the clinical legal programs, I believe.
And the case, the court stated that the state, in the exercise of its reasonable supervision and regulation over education, can only impose minimum regulations. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. What specific policies would you propose for the students, Leslie?
Your Honor, for the students in terms of, may I clarify the question, or just in any policy, Your Honor, for their behalf?
That's what your intendment if being if appointed as such in the legal education board.
For their behalf, Your Honor, I would like to, one, fight for the passing of the Magna Carta for law students. And second, I would also like to provide a space for students to discuss their mental health and the way they are coping with law school. I think that it should be given in an important area or an important space for people to discuss and students to really talk about what concerns they have, and so that they can cope with each other and build relationships that help them face the challenges of law school. And so I think this would be one of the policies I would put forward, Your Honor. I'd also like to forward accessibility of legal education, and more importantly, making sure that the quality of legal education is strong across the board and across all places. I understand what it's like to leave for education, Your Honor, to leave my home for education. And I would like that there would be a time where people don't feel like they have to make the choice, because quality education is everywhere.
And what matters need to be regulated in your sector?
For the law students, Your Honor, I believe
Yes, please.
for law students, we should be able to regulate how law students are acting and are voicing out. While we do have freedom of expression, I think to an extent, we should also be very careful about what we put on social media. While we don't want to silence any of those concerns, I think we should always be able to allow students to talk about concerns in a very well informed way. That's first. I think also students must be made sure that they are following the rules and the regulations of their schools. So for instance, if there are regulations, and I know, and I recognize now it's harder because it's all online, but in terms of making sure that there is honor in the work that we do, making sure that students are following the rules that are applicable, we should also be able to regulate them as well. Because I think a lot of times students look outward and not inward in terms of assessing how their education is going about.
All right, my last question. And listen carefully, Leslie.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is a psychological one. All right. Two men sit down to dinner, each with his own son, but there are three plates, and each person has his own. Can you work out how?
If there, that I think, Your Honor, if both own son, I think if I were to
Two
look at
men.
it, I would say two men with their both their sons and two of their sons are present. I would say that the definition of a son is different, and it is not necessary that the father is the biological father of one. I would say that it's possible that their sons are the same person. If there are just three plates on the table and all of them have plate, then that only means that they share the same son. And it's possible if we go beyond the definition of a family, go beyond definition of what the son is, and go beyond the definition of how our relationships are made. But I might be just philosophizing all of that, Your Honor.
Anyway, or is it the possibility of one? It is the grandfather, his son, and his grandson.
That might actually be more correct, Your Honor. I think I read too much in the question.
All right, that is one of even analytical one. Thank you for your time and
Thank you, Your
effort,
Honor. Thank
Leslie,
you for
and
your
good luck in regards to a boyfriend also.
time.
Good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, Your Honor, Judge Ilaw. The last to
Welcome.
interview Ms. Torres is our Executive Committee Chairperson, Honorable Justice Jose Catral Mendoza.
Thank you very much, Tony Ann. Good morning, Ms. Torres.
Good morning, Your Honor.
I will be adopting the questions of my colleagues, and I've also read your answers to the essay questions. But I will begin my interview with the question: what is your view of the legal profession? Why is it that, in terms of morality and ethics, it is considered very low? Even during the time of Shakespeare, through one of his characters, he advocated that we kill all lawyers. Even the devil has been boasting that he has the best lawyers. What can you say of this? What is your view of the legal profession?
Your Honor, for me, the legal profession holds paramount a body of law and rights, which have rights and obligations. And we stay devoted and dedicated to that law and make sure that that law rules. I do recognize that there are so many individuals who think that this is not a moral profession or that they would say a lot of comments about the legal profession. I do think the reason for this is because while there are things that are run by principles and our morals, in terms of the law, lawyers are really beholden to what the law states. And therefore, we are able to stick to that commitment. And although in certain instances it's not the same for everyone and they don't disagree, I think it ultimately boils down to the fact that they're not committed to the same body of law that we are. And in a way, because we want to uphold that law, we defend people who have done bad things. We defend the accused. We've defended murderers, And we've defended them for the reason that they have the right to be defended. And there is a process by which we want to ascertain their guilt. And I feel that in most cases, this isn't really acceptable for most people. A lot of people will say, will you really defend a murderer if he's killed this many people? And while to an extent we disagree with all the horrible things that other people have done, it is also an incumbent duty upon us to fight for the rights they have as people. And I think that's why morally we have come in different paths and directions with certain sectors of society, Your Honor.
Where lies that? What is the basis for such reputation? Yes, lawyers represent their clients' interests. Everybody does that. And why is it that the profession has a bad reputation?
I believe, Your Honor, it's because others have also acted in a way that is not in pursuance of the goals of the profession. And I recognize this, and I think one of the reasons why we've received
Do
really
you
a
think
bad
it's the
reputation.
majority?
I don't I don't believe so, Your Honor. I also don't hope it is the case. I
No.
hope it is. Yes, Your Honor. I
Shakespeare
hope that
wanted that all lawyers be killed. Have you read that?
I've heard of it
All
before, Your Honor.
that he killed all lawyers. Then the devil has been boasting that his adversary, where will you get your good lawyers? Yes, them. Oh,
I
what can you
I
do
think
as a member if you are a member of the legal education board representing the students? What can you do about it?
Your Honor, I think it boils down to how we instill on the students that they have an obligation to uphold the rule of law and to make sure that we stay true to what the law asks of us. And I think this is where, as a representative, I'd be able really to at least try to make an effort to make sure that the formation of law students while they are in law school is strong, so that should there be any temptation in the future in practice, should there be any difficulty for them, their principles that are deeply embedded in how they've gone through their formation as lawyers would be in essence unshakable. And I think that's how I want to move forward, like making sure that we have these principles and embodying these principles in the process of learning the law. So there should always be a place for us to see how these principles work at hand, where, what kinds of cases, and what these faces of the people and the victims look like. And I think that's important, Your Honor.
Have you taken legal ethics?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Oh. Uh, it is one of the subjects in the bar. I think 5%. Do you think, what is your view of the advocacy that legal ethics should not only be a separate subject, but it should be integrated in all the subjects?
Your Honor, I believe that in as much as legal ethics should be integrated, and the way we apply and learn certain bodies of law should be in assessment to how we could best be ethical lawyers. I still think that legal ethics should remain as a separate body of law in terms of how we take the bar, at least, so that the approach is really centralized and really it hits deep to the core, because you don't assess that for a certain law, for a certain body, for instance, there are just certain ethics or certain rules that are applicable. I want it to be that you would know everything, all of them, all the rules, so that in every instance or any application of the law, you are able to know that there are rules that should govern your ethical conduct. And I think that's why it should be separate, Your Honor, so that it's applicable across the
But
board.
it should be separate. I thought you wanted that aside from being a separate subject, they should also be integrated in the other subjects.
Your Honor, I would like
You
to
mentioned
clarify my
separate.
position.
You agreed earlier that it should be integrated, and now you're talking about a separate something. Can you
Your Honor, I would like to
explain?
clarify.
Oh,
Yes, Your Honor.
clarify.
Yes, Your Honor. My attempt was to be able to say, Your Honor, that in learning these different bodies of law, we should also be able to bear in mind that there are ethical obligations in the practice of these bodies of law. However, I think that as a subject, it should be separate, and even as a bar subject, it should be separate, so that there is no dissonance or disjunct in any person's mind about what laws should be applicable, and there shouldn't be any illusion wherein they would say that only when it comes to this particular body of law will this set of legal rules apply. I don't want to have that confusion. I want it so that there is a separate body or a separate approach to legal ethics, so that in every situation there should be the entire body of rules that is applied and not just certain parts of it.
Why is integration? Why would it cause confusion?
Your Honor, I think the moment we say that
Y- y-
in term,
We talk about integration earlier. Why would it cause confusion?
Your Honor, I think the moment we start to label one rule, one we start to label and say that one rule is only applicable with this set of body of laws, then we limit really the extent and the application of all the other rules, of ethical rules, when it comes to other bodies of law. And so there might be a confusion in a sense that we recognize that there is a priority in terms of what ethical rules apply instead of being able to assess them holistically and apply them consistently across the board.
Oh, okay. Uh, you talk about mental health of students earlier. About the
Yes, Your
mental
Honor.
health of professors. What can you say about it?
I do take this with utmost seriousness as well, Your Honor. I've actually
That
been
that is
allowed.
your experience in UP.
Your
That
Your
they
Honor.
need to be checked. Their mental health need to be checked.
Um, I just believe, Your Honor, that it is also difficult for professors to cope with the pandemic. It's also difficult from them because they're able to, for the longest time, they've been teaching in certain ways and certain methods that for them guaranteed or at least allowed them to make sure that they were teaching the law well. And this is part of how they feel that they um, fulfill their purpose as professors, really. I really believe that professors who come to the colleges and teach the law are the ones who have a strong sense of what the law should be. And they really come to teach because they feel this sense of purpose. And I think, Your Honor, the moment that we moved to the online platform, and it was also very difficult for them to assess whether they were able to fulfill that
And
purpose, whether they
assuming normal times, not during this pandemic and lockdown and online
were.
classes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Assuming normal times, what
Your
can you
Honor,
say about the
uh,
mental health of professors? You advocate the mental health of students earlier. How about the mental health of professors?
Your Honors, I also believe that this is important. Students cannot, I believe, and not in the same extent that professors affect the mental health of their students. Students also affect the mental health of their professors. But I believe as a natural consequence of their profession, their age, there are so many circumstances that are not controlled by the college or by the institution in terms of assessing the mental health of a professor. But I think it's also important because a professor's mental health or mental health um, in a way determines how best he or she teaches students. And that also means that the effectiveness of how the professor teaches is going to be limited by how functional they feel. Although there are cases where mental health is less stable, but they're incredibly functional as persons, and that would be fine too. But for instances where it's very difficult for a professor to move forward because of mental health, then I think in the same way that students are granted that space to breathe and to be able to find themselves in the process, professors must be given that as well. I think it is a rather there's a responsibility that's shared on both sectors to help each other out. It's a process to learn and it's also a process to teach.
Yes, in the end, you are from UP, you are asked to evaluate your professors, right? Their
Yes, Your Honor.
performance in school, but you are not really equipped to determine their mental health,
Yes, Your Honor.
unlike psychologists. Uh, you've taken labor law.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, can a school dismiss a professor on the basis of the poor rating given by the students in their evaluation?
No, Your Honor. If there's poor rating, then it
Yes.
takes into consideration. Then that should be taken into consideration in terms of assessing the work of the professor. But it should not be the sole determinant.
It's not so determinant, but
No,
it
Your
can
Honor.
be a basis
It
for
can be a basis
dismissing.
of assessing performance.
It
Performance,
goes
Your Honor. If
into
assuming
it goes into efficiency. Is that not a
yes, Your Honor.
lawful cause? Is that not a lawful cause for terminating the service of such professor?
I believe it is a lawful cause, Your Honor, but it has to be taken into consideration with other circumstances as well. And so a professor can be dismissed if the professor has gone far beyond the gaps. But mere inefficiency, Your Honor, should not be the reason.
Earlier, you were reminded that the schools or the state uh, can regulate and supervise the schools, but it can only impose minimum requirements. Or what is your understanding of this?
Your Honor, my understanding of in terms of regulation, my understanding of setting minimum requirements only means that institutions and regulations should be allowed to give access to people. Therefore, in terms of making sure that there's quality education, there should be a way by which we determine access, and that should be at least graduating college or other certain metrics that the school should impose. But as a blanket policy, minimum requirements should only entail to that which can be achieved by students regardless of their resources and regardless of where they come from.
Okay. Can you give me an example? What is an acceptable minimum regulation?
Your Honor, I believe actually that the way UP has an examinations is considered minimum for a reason that it it has limited slots and it can only grant the slots to certain students and therefore it had to filter. But more importantly, Your Honor, the ability for people to access that examination was also free and across the board. So there's so many students from all around the country who were able to take the examinations, and they were able to enter
Those are
UP.
existing regulations.
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm talking about your uh, uh, your proposal uh, proposal about legal education, which would not transgress this minimum regulation.
Your Honor, if I were to propose anything, it would be to make sure that there is a similar resource, at least core in terms of the core of the subjects, that is rather a similar or at least an ideal set that should be given out to a lot of law schools. I think for the most part, law schools and how they present their course materials are also determined by the professors they have. And I want to make sure that other institutions from other areas in the country get to access at least the minimum in terms of where to find the law, the basic materials, in most important cases, the landmark cases that students should be able to read. I think in a way it equalizes and makes sure that there are minimum standards and minimum learnings and a basis really of education that is across the board for everyone. So as long as everyone has this standard, then anything beyond that should just be based on the education or based on the school. But as long as the standard is guaranteed to all institutions, then that should be better.
What is your view of the contract between a student and the school?
The contract, Your Honor, in terms of legal education,
Yes,
I
the
believe,
nature of the contract between a student and a school.
Your Honor, I believe a student who enters an institution undertakes to learn based on how that institution conducts its education. And in the same way, it is also the concurrent obligation of that institution to guarantee that the education it gives and the quality of that education is important and is good. And so there is a responsibility from both ends because one tries to do its best and the other tries to do its best as well. It's a matter of giving the best materials and being the best education for teaching, and there's also the best of effort in terms of learning. So I
What
think
do
it goes
you?
both.
So what do you? How would you describe such contract?
Your Honor, I think it's a contract
And
of
have you come across the case of Isabelo versus Philippine Perpetual Help? I mean,
I apologize, Your Honor. I'm not so sure if I've read this case.
oh, I see. Anyway, it was stated there that the contract between the school and the student, it is not an ordinary contract, but a contract imbued with public interest.
Yes.
Okay? Just your opinion. Why was it described as imbued with public interest?
Your Honor, I think it is imbued with public interest because, for one, the citizens and the students that a school produces will be brought out to society and will contribute to that society, will shape society in the future as well and in the coming generations. And it is imbued with public interest in terms of the students because they have the right to be able to exercise certain freedoms. And they also have the right to be able to shape themselves in a way that they view themselves to be most purposeful and most useful to society. So I think, in a way, Your Excellencies, and if we apply this to legal education, there is public interest because the quality of the lawyers that you make afterwards will determine how the legal system will work in the next generations. And which is why it's important because the rule of law essentially will be affected by the quality of the lawyers and the principles that those lawyers have in terms of making sure that it's defended.
Okay. Is it a semester to semester contract?
Your Honor, I don't believe it's a select semester to semester contract. I think it's more of a commitment when you enter into law school and you undertake to be this particular kind of lawyer, to be the best lawyer you could be. And I think it doesn't last. It's not a commitment that you make per semester, you renew per semester. It's one that you make from the beginning and you see how it ends and see to its end, Your Honor.
So the student has the right to be enrolled in order to complete his course
Yes, Your Honor.
until he graduates.
As long as that student complies with the minimum requirements of that institution. So, for instance, if a student is not performing academically well, then it infringes upon the school's obligation to make sure that it produces quality students. And so, it should not be the case that the school is forced to take on a student just because he wants to finish his degree, but at the same time that student is not putting in the effort or is not doing well to continue his education.
See. So academic deficiency is one reason for the school not to admit him again.
I believe so, Your Honor. Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
About disciplinary matters, what can you say of that?
Definitely, Your Honors. I believe that disciplinary concerns or issues should be taken into consideration because they really show the character of the student. And despite knowing the law full well, if the character of a student does not match this knowledge of the law, then there really ultimately would be no purpose because the law would not be used the way it should be used. And so disciplinary measures or problems by a student should be taken into consideration. And should the college or should the institution deem that this student would not be fit for the legal profession in the future, then that is also a right that the institution can exercise in refusing to accept the student.
Pimentel versus Leb mainly covered the academic freedom of a school. How about students? They have academic freedom.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that academic freedom is also guaranteed for students. So it's guaranteed for institutions. It's guaranteed for members of that institution, which also include the students, Your Honor. And I think that in a way, while it is true that there are certain measures, the freedom, however, should not be absolute in a sense that just because a student wants to go to law school but does not put the same effort or does not have the character to stay in law school, it doesn't mean that the student can completely exercise that freedom because it is subject to other freedoms and the other exercise of academic freedoms of other sectors as well.
If from your record it appears that you finished a Bachelor of Arts degree in UP, what was your specialization? What did you major in? It's not indicated in your lab. Are you in uh, your biodata or what?
I apologize, Your Honor. I believe I sent a new copy, and the new copy stated that I graduated with a degree in business administration from
OBA.
UP Diliman. Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, I see. So most of the law students are graduates of or finish AB Political Science. But you have expressed your opinion earlier that you believe in democracy.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Uh, uh, you have studied well anyway. Basically, as a business student in UP, I think you have one political science subject, correct? Or no
Yes, Your
more?
Honor.
Yes, you have.
I think it was a general elective
You
course.
have studied all the legal systems or political systems in the world, right?
We have a general, a brief discussion, Your Honor. Yes.
Brief only. Well, in your experience, your 25-year experience in this world, what is your view? Is it really the system or the persons running this?
In my experience, Your Honor, and what I have seen, it's the flaws of the persons running the system, and it's also part of it's also part
Continue.
of Your Honor. In this case, I believe it's what we have made of democracy as a people. I think there are structures that are so ingrained in our society that make use of democracy, and use it so that it further oppresses people. So in a way,
They
maybe
take
there are,
advantage. They
yes,
take
Your Honor.
advantage.
And in a way, that shows the flaws of democracy. But if we compare it to other systems, there is no other situation or sphere by which people can be engaged as well as they are engaged at this point. I think it's just that when people recognize how it is, and sometimes how easy it is to take advantage of other people, and how to cement that policy or that method of taking advantage, I think that's when we create structural systems that have been with us for generations and are so difficult to remove. And I think that's why it shows that it really is a problem of the persons who are part of that democracy. Because the moment we decide and wake up that no longer is this what we want for ourselves, then it's easy to overhaul a lot of these structures that are not inherent to democracy but have been in place and have given us the illusion that they were part of democracy even if they are not.
Okay. We have a Republican form of government. You have studied constitutional law. What
Yes,
do
Your
you
Honor.
think are the constitutional provisions which some individuals have taken up to the detriment of his countrymen?
I think, Your Honor, the provisions that provide for republicanism have been used by,
What provisions in our constitution?
Your Honors, there are provisions in the Constitution that provide for the kind of government that we would have, which is a Republican and democratic state. And
There
I
is a
think,
system of checks and balances, right?
yes, Your
Separation
Honor.
of powers, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you say that we have too much rights?
No, Your
About
Honor.
the rights of the accused?
I don't think there are too many rights,
Is
Your
it
Honors.
not?
I think,
Does it contribute to our crime, the rise in our crime rate,
Your Honor,
the
the way I
rights of
see
the
it,
accused?
sorry, Your Honor. Your Honor, the way I see it, I
Yes.
believe that the justice system that we have now is one that is reformative and retributive as well. And it also rehabilitates. I think the moment we say that there are too many rights for the accused or for violators of the law, that's when we fail and stop becoming a rehabilitative system, and one that is purely retributive and one that is punitive, which is not the kind of society that we want, because we recognize that while people make mistakes, and while these mistakes can be corrected, people can be better out of these mistakes, which is why we have a justice system that allows for citizens who have created violations or have made violations to be reintegrated back into society. So I don't believe, Your Honor, that we have too much rights. I feel that enforcing those rights should be what we should look into and what we should empower all the more.
Okay, we have a Republican form of government. Are you a rightist or a leftist?
Your Honor, I think I'm a centrist.
You're a centrist. You took the safe way.
Although I did deliberate on this for quite some time when I was younger. What if I really wanted? I think centrist leaning left, but I do believe
Left of center, like Mang Lapus.
But I think right now you're on. Right now
Why
you're
do you
on.
say you're left of center? Why do you say
I think
you describe yourself as being left of center?
I think there are certain policies and certain ideals that I feel very strongly about and are not necessarily the end of the spectrum for me, but I do consider them as vital for what my principles stand and how my morality is determined, Your Honor.
I see. You're from UP. You were asked about this earlier, about the DND abrogating their agreement with
Yes, Your Honor.
UP. Is this a violation of the institution's academic freedom?
I believe it is, Your Honor. I
What
honestly,
freedom? What academic freedom was violated
Your Honor, I
or
believe it
has
is,
been violated?
Your Honor, I believe it's the freedom to be safe within our circles and our spaces as a
Is
university.
that covered by the academic freedom as described in Pimentel, quoting Justice Felix Frankfurter?
Your Honor, I believe that academic freedom, the way it was discussed in Pimentel, was really
Yes,
about assessing the requirements of education, how a school can best make
yes.
sure to stick to these standards and these requirements.
Yes.
Um,
So you
Although
are
they don't,
expanding the meaning of academic freedom.
Your Honor, the way I see it, it's not an expansion, but rather a different application of academic freedom, which has been applied in the
Different
past,
application,
which is one
not
of the
within
reasons.
the parameters in Pimentel.
Your Honor, I believe Pimentel can look into a certain application of academic freedom, and there are also certain cases that look into academic freedom in different aspects. And one of them, Your Honor, I believe, is for this particular situation wherein we are faced with UP's academic freedom and the threat that exists against it. I believe, Your Honor, that in this case, there is a violation of academic freedom because we only look at history and how we have been treated as a university and how our students have been treated and how in a way that has policed our thought, policed our ideals, and put pressure on the students, put pressure on the institution, and even put pressure on the professors to silence what they think so that they can be they wouldn't be viewed to be dissidents. And I think, Your Honor, that shows that academic freedom is being curtailed and the
In that
necessary
sense,
freedom.
do you think UP has been controlled? Can you elaborate on that? I am from UP also. We were never controlled in our thoughts. We had the right.
Yeah.
We had the right to choose what to believe in. We joined indignation rallies, but
Yes, Your
our thoughts were never controlled.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe
Uh,
I completely agree with this, Your Honor. But the way I would want to present it, Your Honor, is that while it has not achieved its desired effects, the fact that it is there and it creates that presence, it shouldn't be, Your Honor, the way to assess academic
what
freedom
do you
or
mean?
whether the academic.
By their presence, they produce chilling effect.
Yes, Your Honor. I think the way we assess whether or not academic freedom is being curtailed is not whether there is a chilling effect that exists. Because in the case of UP, history has shown that it doesn't, because it's an institution of brave students that really refuse. But the fact, Your Excellencies, that it is present and that it can produce a chilling effect is already the harm in itself. And I think that's what academic freedom tries to counter. And that's why we uphold academic freedom, because it's not the necessary consequence, but it is rather the existence of a mere threat to our thought, to our thought, to our ideals that already constitutes a violation.
If a crime is committed inside Diliman or in other UP campuses, can the police not come in?
The police can come
And
in, Your Honor.
they can.
Yes, Your Honor. And
Oh,
I believe the DND Accord does not preclude these circumstances from happening, or when it is meritorious to have the presence of state polices or the AFP, for instance, should it be necessitated by the circumstance. But I think we only look into erring on the side of caution, considering that academic freedom is such an important right, really, that we can't not be cautious about how it has been treated and how it has been violated in the past, and which is why we created these safeguards and why these safeguards exist. So the general rule is that we are
Do you need the
cautious.
agreement?
Your Honor,
Do you need such agreement? Does UP need such agreement with the ND? Is it necessary?
Your Honor, I think in the current context, I believe it is necessary. It has been necessary in the past, and from the looks of it, it appears to be necessary now. I think when we have vilified certain institutions and claimed and assumed certain things of them, then that necessarily casts a shadow of doubt on these institutions. That is very hard
Do you
for.
think UP has been vilified?
In a way, Your Excellencies, yes. I think we have been vilified because we have produced dissidents. And although there is merit in the statement that we have produced dissidents, we have also produced people who have fought against those dissidents. And so I believe it's not a fair conclusion to say that we merely produce dissidents, because we produce so much more. And we produce people who create ideas and add them into a circle where we can discuss them and we can flourish certain principles out of these ideas. And so while we disagree with dissidents, their presence, which makes us question a lot of things in our society, also has a relevant rather effect on how we move forward, especially given that this is a democratic state.
So you want UP Diliman to be really called Diliman Republic?
No, no, Your Honor.
Is that the reason why it is called Diliman Republic?
I'm not aware, Your Honor.
Even during the 60s, it's called
It's
Diliman
already been
Republic. Sige,
Well,
that
it's a
will be all. Ms. Torres, thank you very
Thank you, Your
much.
Honor. Thank you for your time.
That will be all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Honor, Justice Mendoza. That concludes the public panel interview of Ms. Leslie Diane D. Torres. Thank you very much, and we wish you the best of luck, Ms. Torres.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great
ma'am.
day. Honors.